Hello, my beautiful ones, do not forget to leave that like, subscribe to the channel, and comment rabbit. The anime begins with a boy who is running away from a unicorn rabbit, which is about to finish him off. While running, he hears a voice, asking if he wishes to disable the voice inside his mind, but he answers no, because he does not want to be alone. At that moment, the unicorn rabbit attacks him, but he manages to dodge and the rabbit goes right through his back. When he falls, with a lot of luck, he ends up defeating the rabbit. Even so, he wonders where he ended up. Meanwhile, we see a beautiful elf listening to a mysterious voice in her mind, which tells her that something very valuable fell to the east. She wonders what that voice is referring to, but suddenly her clothes cannot support so much power, and end up exposing her chest. Returning to the boy, he wonders what he should do with that rabbit, but suddenly his stomach rumbles and he feels that the time to eat has arrived. The problem is that he does not know if that meat is edible. At that moment, the voice analyzes the corpse and informs him that the meat can indeed be consumed and that it turns out very good in a stew. The boy gets quite surprised and, to attest, that mysterious voice asks what that bag is. The voice answers that it is a bag made with materials that do not belong to that world. The kid gets surprised and starts asking what each thing is, but upon looking at the ground and asking another question, the voice in his head reveals that that is a level 273 maze eater. The boy gets worried, imagining that something exists beneath the earth, and, with that, thinks that maybe he can also appraise himself. When he does that, we discover that his name is Hibiki and that his job is a provisional appraiser. He is 16 years old and his attributes are not impressive at all. Even so, he gets a little indignant when he discovers that his job is only provisional. Above all, he wonders what he is doing in that world, considering that he is just a student. Then he asks the voice who it really is, and it introduces itself as his status assistant, but explains that it cannot provide personal information. Hibiki gets quite disappointed, but realizes that he possesses too many skills, so many that he ends up getting confused. Among them are tutorial, appraisal, world map, treasure chest, dictionary, grimoire, and expert eye. Trying to translate that, he decides to activate the expert eye, making a very strange pose. However, nothing strange happens. Next he tries to use the tutorial, but his assistant warns him that it is already running. Hibiki continues without understanding anything, so he activates the world map, imagining that a huge map will appear before him, but ends up disappointed when he discovers that he was running in circles the entire time and that the map only shows the places he has already passed. Even so, he continues walking with the map open and finally manages to find a path coming straight at him, earning the title of Lost in Another World. And to make the situation even worse, suddenly a giant dog appears by his side. Hibiki panics so much that he ends up scaring even the dog. And right in front of Hibiki appears the big busted woman from before. The translation skill is activated and Hibiki thanks the lady. She introduces herself as Amelia and asks how he managed to get out of where he was, but Hibiki ends up getting distracted by her attribute. Next, he asks if she is an elf, and she says that it is obvious, but he thinks that she is doing a cosplay, which leaves Amelia quite confused. Even so, she does not give it much importance and asks what he was doing in the plains of the Maze Eater. Hibiki does not understand what she is talking about, and Amelia cannot believe that he entered that place without even knowing what it was. But Hibiki answers that more than entering, he simply appeared there all of a sudden. The elf gets quite surprised by the answer, and Hibiki takes the opportunity to analyze her, discovering that she is a 56-year-old elf, level 21. Besides being a spirit archer with several elemental skills, he gets quite impressed when he discovers that she really is an elf, but mainly when he sees that she is 56 years old. At that moment, Amelia comments that he was very lucky to manage to get out of the Maze Eater, since it is a monster that camouflages itself as a plane. Even though it does not attack directly, it waits for its prey to get exhausted so it can then devour it. Hibiki understands that he was very close to being devoured. Right after that, Amelia hugs him and says that now he is safe, very safe and comfortable. She continues saying that he does not need to worry, calling him a boy. Hibiki reveals that in reality he is already 16 years old. Amelia cannot believe that he is an adult and still remains so small. Sometime later, while they rest, she apologizes to him, while Hibiki understands that in that world, turning 15 years old means becoming an adult. After they finish eating, Hibiki asks where exactly they are, and Amelia gets so surprised by the question that she ends up spitting out the water she was drinking. Right after she cleans everything up and explains that they are in the kingdom of Appraiser. Hibiki apologizes, saying that he knows absolutely nothing about that place, because he came from a very distant place called Japan. when he realizes that Amelia has never heard of this country. He understands that he really is in another world. Upon noticing his worry, Amelia tells him not to worry, since she herself will take him to the city. Sometime later, Hibiki ends up falling into a deep sleep. Meanwhile, Amelia raises a real alarm inside her head, commenting that he lowered his guard way too fast, even though he had just met her. She realizes that his clothes are very strange and concludes that maybe he is the valuable thing that the spirit was talking about. She wonders who he really is, but ends up falling asleep. At that moment, a voice thanks Amelia for protecting Hibiki. Later, Hibiki dreams about his old companions, and in his dream his friend Taki shows that he is jealous of him, because his childish appearance attracted the attention of older, beautiful, and big-busted women. He also wanted to live that dream. His other two female friends were named Amain and Coco. They were about to enter summer vacation, and Hibiki was arriving at the classroom on his last day of school, when suddenly that light blinded him. He wakes up from the dream and realizes that his cell phone has no signal, so he thinks that his friends must be worried about him. While he thinks about them, a wild button hits him, and when turning around to see what happened, he ends up coming face to face with Paradise. Even so, he does not pay much attention to that. Instead, he scans the particles around him. The assistant informs him that that is a magic barrier created to monitor a specific area. After finally accepting that he really is in another world, he wonders what he must do to manage to go back to his own. When checking his attributes, Hibiki asks the assistant what kind of job he received and if it was some god who granted it to him. The assistant explains that the rarity of his occupation is rank B, and that it possesses the appraisal skill, allowing him to identify the attributes and skills of any target. Furthermore, it is about a job that does not require combat skills. Hibiki manages to understand that part. What he cannot comprehend is why his job appears as provisional. In the end, he decides not to think much about it and goes to rest. The next morning, Amelia wakes up, and while watching him sleep, comments that he looks like a kitten. Right after, she gets very nervous when she realizes that she spent the night sleeping beside a man, but tries to calm down, remembering that men and women from the same group sleeping together is something normal. But her breasts almost end up slipping out, and when she realizes that, she covers herself. At that moment, Hibiki wakes up. He does not notice the tense atmosphere that is going on, and shows the button that fell during the night. Next, he gets quite surprised to discover that she has such large breasts. Amelia gets embarrassed and slaps his face. Sometime later, the two of them continue on their journey. While they walk, Hibiki asks how far away the city of Lowell is. Amelia answers that it will take about half a day to arrive, maintaining that pace. Next, Hibiki asks if they will really be okay with so many monsters nearby. Amelia gets quite surprised when she realizes that he managed to sense their presence, but Hibiki explains that this was only possible thanks to his world map. The elf gets even more impressed when she discovers that he possesses a rarity skill. She gets curious and asks what his job is, and he answers calmly that he is a provisional appraiser. Amelia asks if he is mocking her, but Hibiki answers that he himself is also confused, because even with her saying that this skill is rare, in practice, it only shows the places where he has walked, and if there are people or monsters in the vicinity. Amelia gets indignant when she realizes that Hibiki has no idea of the true value of this skill, since any adventurer would love to possess something so useful for survival. Thanks to this, she finally understands how he managed to escape from the plains of the Maze Eater. According to Amelia, an ignorant, clumsy person without the slightest common sense like him would never have managed to escape otherwise. Hibiki then decides to retaliate and asks if Amelia has friends. She tries to maintain her composure and answers yes. Hibiki then agrees and says that she is right. After all, he is her friend. This leaves Amelia very embarrassed. Next, Hibiki uses his skill to check if there is any danger nearby and ends up detecting a crystal hair. Upon hearing this, Amelia gets excited and asks where it is, explaining that the horn of this creature is difficult to get, serves to manufacture elixirs, and can be sold for 200 gold coins. When they finally find the creature, Hibiki appraises it and recommends that Amelia be careful because it possesses a skill called Escape, besides the skill to detect presence. Amelia answers with all confidence that he can leave it to her. Next, she uses her magic to cancel out both the smell and the sound around them. Hibiki gets impressed and says that that is amazing. Amelia then takes the opportunity to compliment him as well, saying that thanks to his world map, he manages to locate objects that are hard to find and that any other group of adventurers would love to have him as a member. She even adds that it does not matter that he does not know how to fight, because that is what the rest of the team is for, while his role would only be to give support from the rear to avoid any danger. She ends up letting it slip that she would not mind at all forming a party with him. But Hibiki was distracted by his own thoughts and asks what it was that she said. Emilia pretends she did not say anything. Even so, she decides that she will not give up and that she will hunt that rabbit so that Hibiki sees all the greatness of his future companion and never wants to step away from her again. As for Hibiki, he merely concludes that that girl really loves money. Emilia goes into action and fires her spirit arrow, but the rabbit dodges the attack with great ease. Hibiki warns that the creature is already quite far away, while Emilia cannot believe that her maximum power shot was dodged. As long as the escape skill remains active, they will never manage to capture it. The only way would be to make the rabbit itself decide to attack, because at that moment its skill would stop working. Then Hibiki has the brilliant idea of serving as bait and making the rabbit attack him. Emilia hesitates, because that can be dangerous. However, Hibiki answers that she no longer needs to worry, because upon appraising the creature he discovered that that hare is quite stupid. They attract its attention using a few branches, and Emilia corners it with her earth magic. Upon seeing Hibiki, the creature charges right at him, taking advantage of the perfect opportunity. Emilia delivers the final blow and sends it off to the ice sky. Hibiki praises her performance and says that she did an excellent job, but Emilia says that all of that was only possible thanks to his help. At that moment, Hibiki gets surprised upon realizing that he leveled up and gets quite confused, since he did absolutely nothing. But Emilia explains that he used his skill to devise a strategy based on her skills, which means that that was a true teamwork effort, meaning the credit belongs to both of them. Emilia celebrates all excited, showing paradise to us. Meanwhile, the god who sent Hibiki to that world comments that he is very satisfied with this first result, but remembers that that was just the tutorial, and says that he will continue praying so that his life is full of blessings. At the same time, in the Adventurers Guild, we see the registration of a mysterious girl named Ibel. The receptionist informs that the available quests can be found on the bulletin board, but Ibel answers that that will not be necessary, because her first job is already decided. Sometime later, Hibiki and Emilia finally arrive at the city of Lowell. Emilia puts a robe on Hibiki, because his clothes attract way too much attention. Since he is quite small, the robe becomes huge on him, but ends up serving perfectly to hide his clothes. Hibiki gets offended by being called a dwarf, but decides not to pay much attention to it. Emilia then explains that with the money obtained from selling the horn, he will be able to buy clothes and armor. Hibiki gets curious and asks how much a gold coin is worth. Upon noticing Emilia's reaction, he says that it was just a joke, and decides to ask his status assistant for that information. She answers that comparing it to the currency of his world, 1 gold coin is equivalent to approximately 10,000 yen. Hibiki gets impressed and understands why Emilia had such a greedy look. At that moment, Emilia approaches him and asks him to be careful not to say things that reveal that he is an ignorant person without the slightest common sense. Otherwise, many malicious people might take advantage of him. Even saying all of that, she speaks in a very cute way, and Hibiki ends up understanding why she has no friends. Sometime later, upon arriving at the Adventurers Guild, a group of adventurers asks Emilia if she finally assembled a party, or if she decided to work as a babysitter. She answers that despite his presence speaking to the contrary, Hibiki is already an adult. Right after, another group of adventurers approaches to apologize for the rudeness of the previous ones. And before leaving, they wish good luck to Hibiki. Emilia explains that that group is called Silver Banner, but says that at that moment the most important thing is to sell the rabbit's horn. Thus, the two of them go to talk to the receptionist. Hibiki gets quite impressed upon realizing that she has animal ears. Emilia asks Ibel for a private room, and upon entering, they meet with Baus, a very strong fellow who rips off his own shirt, displaying all his masculinity, declaring that all that musculature is the proof of his perseverance and his power. Hibiki gets quite impressed and starts calling the man boss. Baus introduces himself as the guild master. Hibiki gets all excited and asks if he can touch those huge muscles. Next, he confesses that he feels very jealous of him, because since he is quite small, he cannot gain muscle mass, no matter how much he trains. Meanwhile, the girls observe the two of them as if they were complete lunatics, and in the end use magic to leave them unconscious, since the two were unbearably excited. Sometime later, the receptionist named Jahul introduces herself formally to Hibiki. As the receptionist and vice president of the guild, she asks which item they wish to sell, and Emilia shows the hare's horn. Baus answers that the guild can offer about 400 gold coins. Hibiki gets quite radiant, since Emilia had said that the horn could be sold for 200 gold coins, but Emilia stares at the guild master and asks if by any chance she looks like an idiot. She remembers that the horn she sold 3 years ago was bought for 230 gold coins, and that this new one is 3 times bigger, so at the very least they should pay 800 gold coin. Hibiki cannot believe it upon witnessing all of Emilia's greed. Baus answers that the guild simply cannot pay such a high value. The two then initiate an intense negotiation battle. After much insistence, and even with Emilia threatening to sell the horn at the guild in the capital, they finally reach an agreement of 700 gold coins. Emilia gets very happy and celebrates, while Ibel comments to the guild master that they exceeded the projected budget. But since there was no other choice, now the difference will be deducted from his salary. She still hopes that this serves as a lesson for acting like an idiot without respecting the budget limit. Meanwhile, Emilia celebrates all happy, believing that after that incredible demonstration of negotiating skill, Hibiki will certainly not want to detach himself from her anymore. But she gets overly excited, and her sweater cannot contain her powers, and Ibel observes those huge melons and kicks the guys out of the room, saying that now it is time to talk about the transaction. The two are left without understanding why they were put outside. Sometime later, while Hibiki waits on the outside, his assistant informs him that his level 1 tutorial skill can now level up. Hibiki continues without understanding anything, but the assistant explains that this is a skill granted to those who possess a low survival rate, allowing them to receive God's help to learn knowledge and skills. Hibiki feels offended every time he listens to those explanations, because even though it is in a polite manner, they keep insulting him. Suddenly, Hibiki hears a strange voice. As he sees no one nearby, he decides to ignore it. Even so, he thanks that God for protecting him. At that moment, the voice speaks again, saying that it hopes Hibiki continues venerating him, because that gives him motivation to continue working. Hibiki panics, but the god explains that he is the one who is giving him support, but also makes it clear that he will not be able to help him forever. He will do what is possible while he can, but the important thing is for Hibiki to be careful not to die. After saying that, the god bids farewell, leaving Hibiki frustrated for not having had even the chance to ask a single question. At that moment, his assistant informs him that when the tutorial skill levels up, the guide's support will also come to an end, but before she can continue the explanation, Emilia interrupts him. Right after, Emilia is also interrupted by Metria, another receptionist from the guild, who delivers a quest to them. After taking a quick look at the document, Emilia apologizes to Hibiki, but explains that she needs to leave the city, because she cannot refuse a request coming from her homeland, and besides that she will not be able to take him with her. Hibiki then understands that the guide mentioned by the assistant was precisely Emilia, and that now the two will have to go their separate ways. Sometime later, while walking through the streets of the city, Emilia explains that he can continue staying at the inn where she was staying. Besides that, she has already talked to Ibel so that she takes care of him during her absence. Hibiki thanks her and says that he intends to accept a few adventurer jobs, since there are quests that do not require combat skills. Emilia thinks the idea is good, but asks that he be very careful. She reinforces that he can continue at the same inn, and hands him a map so that he can find it easily. Before leaving, Hibiki tries to return the hood that she lent him. However, Emilia says that he can keep the piece as a farewell keepsake. Hibiki asks if she is really sure, because he believes that she needs that hood more than he does. Emilia does not understand the reason, until Hibiki remembers that without the hood, she might end up showing her breasts again. Emilia gets very embarrassed and runs off, and ends up bumping into the mysterious adventurer who had appeared previously. She apologizes very embarrassed, and at that moment a knight approaches, asking why she is in such a hurry. Emilia answers that she needed to return home unexpectedly. After helping the girl to get up, the adventurer realizes that Emilia is an elf, and asks if she is going to the elf kingdom. Emilia confirms, and the girl smiles in a malicious manner, saying that by coincidence she is also going in the same direction. Later, after saying goodbye to Emilia, Hibiki spends a long time trying to sleep. His cell phone ran out of battery, so he cannot distract himself. He still has no idea how he will be able to return to his world, and asks Ibel how he could go to another world. She, a bit embarrassed, gives him an address. Hibiki gets all excited, but when he arrives at the location he discovers that it was not the type of another world to which he was referring, nor does he want to raise suspicions that he came from a parallel world. Hibiki avoids mentioning his true origin. At that moment he is interrupted by Tanya, who enters the room asking if everything is okay, since he did not show up for either breakfast or lunch, which left her quite worried. Hibiki answers that everything is fine, and asks her not to worry. Tanya gets more relieved, then says that she will wait for him for dinner and leaves. After she leaves, Hibiki thinks that depending solely on the money obtained from selling the horns is causing him a lot of anxiety, and concludes that he needs to find a job as soon as possible. So he asks his status assistant what he could do. In response, she opens his attribute screen, but Hibiki continues without understanding anything and asks if those numbers that appear there are really good. His assistant recommends that he avoid fighting alone. Hibiki understands the advice and realizes that he now possesses many new titles, such as Seducer of Older Women and Rich Overnight. Besides that, he also acquired new skills, among them Contract and the Book of Medicine, which is quite useful because it allows performing high-level medical procedures. The assistant recommends that he read all the pages of the book. Hibiki gets quite excited and accepts, and asks to learn all the content. But the assistant warns that after the learning process begins, it will not be possible to interrupt it in the middle. Hibiki gets a bit nervous and asks how long that will take. The assistant answers that it will be quite long, but he does not worry and asks to start right away. The assistant sighs and initiates the learning process. At that very moment, Hibiki feels an intense pain upon receiving all that amount of knowledge all at once. Meanwhile, in another place, Emilia tells the mysterious girl that she met Hibiki, and that now she cannot simply abandon him. The girl answers that in reality it seems that Emilia ended up falling in love with him, but the conversation between the two of them is interrupted by a maid elf, who was waiting for Emilia. Without thinking twice, Emilia runs to her and hugs her, rubbing her melons against her. After letting go of her, the maid named Estelia comments that it had been 5 years since she did not have the pleasure of enjoying those melons. At that moment, Ebel approaches them and Emilia explains that Estelia is the head of the maids, and Ebel answers that it is a pleasure to meet her, and comments that she formed a party with Emilia, provoking jealousy and irritation from Estelia. Several days later, Hibiki finally concluded all the learning from the Book of Medicine. Now that he has recovered consciousness, he decides to go out to buy some new clothes. While walking through the streets of the city, his assistant explains that each skill possesses a different method of acquisition. Hibiki thanks her for all the help that she is giving him, and comments that being called status assistant is quite a long name, so he asks if he can call her simply Sist, and she accepts the suggestion. Sometime later, at the Adventurers Guild, the group's Silver Banner returns severely injured. They ask for help, because their leader faced a silver ruby wolf, and only the guild master would be capable of stopping the hemorrhage. Unfortunately, Baus is not in the city, and Ebel explains that another healing magic could also contain the bleeding. But the companions answer that they have already tried everything and nothing worked. Hibiki realizes that the adventurer is losing a lot of blood, and remembers everything he learned from the Book of Medicine, asking Sist if there is any way to help him. She confirms that yes, so Hibiki asks the group if they permit him to examine the injured person. The mage of the team questions if he really is a healer, but Hibiki answers that in reality he is an appraiser. She gets irritated, asserting that an appraiser would never manage to treat someone. Even so, Hibiki explains that he also possesses medical knowledge. In the end, they permit him to examine the patient. After analyzing him, Hibiki detects the presence of Diric poison in his organism, a poison found in certain toxic herbs. It is precisely this poison that prevents the hemorrhage from being stopped. Sist informs that there remain only 5 minutes of life for the adventurer, and explains that he could be saved by using Superior Heal or Perfect Heal. The problem is that this spell consumes 650 points of mana, while Hibiki possesses only 56. Hibiki asks a question to everyone present, wanting to know if there is anyone capable of using Superior Heal or Perfect Heal, explaining that only these spells can stop the hemorrhage caused by the Diric poison. Metria answers that no one there knows how to use these magics. As if the situation were not desperate enough, Sist informs that now there remain only 4 minutes of life for the adventurer. Hibiki panics because he sees no way to save him. At that moment, Sist suggests that he use the contract skill, since it allows receiving temporarily the mana from his allies, so he would get enough mana to cast the spell. She further explains that a verbal contract is already sufficient, so Hibiki asks everyone to make a contract with him, so everyone will temporarily transfer their mana points to him. With enough mana, he will manage to save the adventurer. Everyone present does not understand exactly what he is talking about, but even so they accept. Right after, everyone begins to feel their mana being drained, but Hibiki realizes that there is still missing 174 points of mana. Ebel asks if she can also participate in the contract. She explains that in case he adds her as a new member, she will be able to contribute as well. Hibiki includes her in the contract, and when Ebel accepts, he finally receives enough mana to cast Superior Heal, eliminating all the poison. Next, he uses Perfect Heal. Everyone observes that powerful magic, while before their eyes, Hibiki manages to save the adventurer and restore his leg. Relieved to have managed to save him, Hibiki ends up fainting due to the massive strain. While he is unconscious, he relives a memory of his friend Amain, who argues with him for always acting impulsively, trying to save any dog or cat that gets stuck on a roof. She says that this personality always puts him in danger, and that nothing guarantees that he will appear to save him when his turn arrives. So she asks that he be more careful. Back to the present, Sist wakes him up using an alarm, informing that the level of his job increased from level 2 to level 5, and that his contract skill evolved from level 1 to level 2. Hibiki wakes up startled, but soon tries to regain his composure upon realizing that Ibel is in the room. He apologizes for the inconvenience, but Ibel answers that he did not cause any problem, and on the contrary thanks him deeply for having saved her younger brother. Hibiki gets quite confused by this. He did not know that she has a brother, and she explains that they have different mothers. Hibiki says that she does not need to thank him, because without the help of everyone lending mana, he would not have managed to do absolutely anything. Even so, Ibel insists, asserting that thanks to him her brother remains alive. She begs please that he accept her gratitude. Hibiki smiles and ends up accepting, and that smile ends up conquering her heart. Returning to the subject, Ibel explains that she took the liberty of asking everyone to keep everything that happened a secret, because no one is capable of using Superior Heal and Perfect Heal. Ibel explains that if that incident becomes public, someone might take advantage of Hibiki to make money. He understands perfectly the risk. Next, Ibel recommends that he join a group of adventurers, because that way he will be much safer having companions by his side. But Hibiki refuses the idea, saying that he does not know for how long he will remain in that city, and that he does not want to make another person carry this problem. Even so, he knows very well that he needs allies. Ibel interrupts him, suggesting that in that case he hire a bodyguard. As for Hibiki, he proceeds to the company of Deadby, in search of a bodyguard. Lyle meets Aranta Deadby. As soon as he hears that Hibiki is looking for a bodyguard, his attitude changes, starting to act like a true pervert. He comments that he can smell a very pleasant fragrance coming from Hibiki, and presents a huge amount of muscular men. Hibiki prefers to decline. Despite all of them being very strong, none of them possesses mana, and he would like to have someone capable of allowing him to use Superior Heal or Perfect Heal in case of emergency. The crazy guy says that he will look for other candidates, but at that moment God advises Hibiki to trust Aranta Deadby himself. Hibiki decides to follow this advice, while walking through the corridors of the company, and Aranta comments that Hibiki can ask for whatever he wants, since he can smell the sweet aroma of money coming from him. Hibiki gets a little worried, and decides to analyze his attributes, and discovers that Aranta possesses the money smell skill. Besides that, he is a level 82 merchant. These skills make Aranta lose control whenever he finds someone capable of enriching him or providing him huge financial profits. Hibiki decides to ignore this strange behavior and looks towards one of the corridors of the company. At that moment, Aranta Deadby recommends that he not go down that path, explaining that the people available in that area possess some flaws. For example, they are not fit to work nor to fight, and for different reasons also cannot return to their homelands. Hibiki gets curious, thinking that maybe those people were transported to that world in the same way that he was, so he asks Aranta to take him to them. Upon noticing Hibiki's interest, Aranta gets very excited, feeling the aroma of money get more and more intense, while Hibiki only observes all that reaction quite terrified. After that, they arrive at the cell where the beastman who had appeared previously is located. Upon asking why he is imprisoned, and Aranta explains that everything happened because he caused a big commotion trying to protect the little girl. Despite everything being a big misunderstanding, rules were rules, and he ended up being imprisoned. When they appraise the girl, they discovered that she possesses a huge talent for magic, but is incapable of controlling it, causing it to always get out of control. The beastman tells Hibiki to go away. A bit frightened, Hibiki only resolves to appraise the two of them, and realizes that some of their attributes are hidden. At that moment, Sist informs that the expert eye detected falsified information, and recommends that he use this skill. even though Hibiki does not remember what that was for. Sist recommends that he use the dictionary. Upon doing so, he discovers that the expert eye is an SSS rank skill, and practically the most powerful appraisal eye in the world, and the higher the level of the user, the more he manages to see the world like a god. Hibiki thinks that god really crossed the line, so when he appraises the wolf with his expert eye, he realizes that the wolf is with the status of imprisoned by an unbreakable chain. But what is most surprising is that he possesses the class of hero, and is at level 95. Hibiki cannot believe it, so he takes a look at the girl, and discovers that she is a sage, but that her magic is out of control, since a human being cannot control power of that level. This inevitably will lead her to self-destruction. Hibiki asks his god why he put something like that in such a small girl. He answers that he had no choice, since that is part of the trial of the sages. The beastman is named Claude, and the girl is named Lillian. After thinking a bit, Hibiki decides to buy them, because the two possess a huge amount of mana. Even so, he highly doubts that a hero and a sage would accept joining him. But God merely says to do whatever he feels like doing. At that moment, Sist recommends that he use his relief measure level 1 skill, which will allow freeing Claude from the chains that bind him, even if the success rate depends on the level of the skill. Hibiki informs Aranta that he will buy the two of them. The smell of money that Hibiki exudes gets very intense, which leaves Aranta more and more excited. Sometime later, when they arrive in the middle of a clearing, Claude asks what Hibiki intends to do with them in that place. Hibiki asks him to calm down, saying that he does not intend to do anything to the little girl, but rather to him. He just needs to do a few things. Next, he reveals that what he wishes is to heal him, but for that he needs Lillian's help. Claude refuses, feeling that all of that is a trap, but Lillian tells him to be quiet, remembering that he always helped her, and that now her turn has arrived to return the favor. She asks Hibiki what she needs to do, and he explains that to manage to heal Claude, a huge amount of mana is necessary, so he asks that she make a contract with him to share her mana. Lillian accepts without thinking twice, and as soon as he receives the mana, Hibiki activates his perfect heal, while Claude cannot believe it when he sees that his body regenerates completely in a matter of moments. Lillian runs to hug him while Claude thanks Hibiki. Next, Hibiki introduces himself officially to the two of them, and asks how he is feeling now. Claude answers that he is feeling much better, but still has not recovered his best form. Hibiki explains that this is perfectly normal, after all he remains cursed. Claude gets surprised to see that Hibiki knows about his curse, since not even appraisers manage to see it. However, Hibiki reveals to Lillian that in the future she will become a sage. Claude gets surprised and asks how he knows all of this. Hibiki answers that he possesses the expert eye. Claude cannot believe that he has the divine eye, something that only God grants. Even so, Hibiki decides not to waste any more time and activates the relief measure skill to remove Claude's curse. At that moment the chains react and divine scissors appear in the sky. The two panic upon seeing that thing flying directly toward Claude, and almost have an attack when the scissors pass right through him. But seconds later Claude is shocked upon realizing that he remains alive and that one of his chains was finally broken. And as for Lillian who faints, Hibiki complains because God cut only one of the chains. God then answers asking what he expected from a skill that is still at level 1. Hibiki's thoughts are interrupted by Claude, who gets impressed upon realizing that part of his strength returned. He kneels before Hibiki, asking forgiveness for his lack of respect, and explains that ever since he was cursed he lost his strength, his reputation, and even his soul. But now he is deeply grateful for having been saved, and begs Hibiki to grant him the honor of performing the ceremony of loyalty. Hibiki has no idea what that is, so Claude explains that it is about a ritual in which he surrenders his soul to swear to protect him and remain by his side forever. Hibiki asks if he is really sure, saying that there would be no problem at all if they continued exactly as they are. Even so, Claude seems to be quite eager to perform the ceremony. Sist then recommends that Hibiki activate the contract skill, because that way the fulfillment of the agreement will be guaranteed for both parties. Besides that, this will make the hero very happy. Hibiki thinks that if this will make him happy, then he will do it with no problem. As soon as he activates the contract, Claude begins to cry. The ceremony is performed, and upon concluding the vows, the two receive the mark of the emblem of the spirits of light, proof that the loyalty was officially accepted. Claude warns that from then on, Hibiki can call him simply Claude. Hibiki answers saying that he will count on him, while Lillian gets happy for her partner. Meanwhile, in another place, the girls continue their journey, but Astelia is very tired. When she sees her exhausted, Emilia suggests that they continue heading toward the hot springs, which are just ahead, to rest. Estelia thinks the idea is excellent, because that way she will be able to see those giant melon. But upon remembering that they are traveling in the company of that unpleasant woman, Estelia suggests that it is best to continue on the way. She approaches Amelia, whispering that it is better to hasten their pace and not take a bath with that woman, because being naked, they will be unarmed, and the most sensible thing is not to lower their guard as if they were her friends. But since Amelia really wants a friendship, she imagines the two of them taking a bath together, rubbing each other's backs like great friends. So she announces that it is time to proceed to the hot springs, making the other one roll her eyes out of so much anger. Returning to Hibiki, he tells the two that he does not possess much combat power, nor does he have a large amount of mana, and that for this reason he will need their help. The two answer that he can count on them. After closing the deal, Hibiki activates the contract to share mana among them. As soon as he does that, his grimoire skill levels up, leaving him quite excited. At that moment, Claude comments that earlier he noticed that Hibiki was talking to someone, but there are only the three of them there. Hibiki then explains that he is talking to Sist, a voice inside his head that teaches him everything. Claude gets quite surprised and asks if by any chance he possesses the tutorial skill. Hibiki confirms, leaving Claude even more impressed. Next, he asks if Hibiki also possesses the title of Lost in a parallel world. Hibiki asks if he knows parallel worlds, and Claude answers that he knows they exist, but does not know many details. To him, it is impressive that his lord Hibiki possesses so many skills granted by God, especially the tutorial, a skill considered miraculous. At that moment, God comments to Hibiki that Claude is just exaggerating, but right after admits that he really becomes a bit slow, because he uses a third of his power to keep this skill working. Hibiki answers that if it is like that, then this skill is really absurd. The three continue their journey, and Claude comments that everything indicates that the god to which Hibiki is connected is the main god. He explains that in that world there are 11 gods, and that only the main god can grant the tutorial and expert eye skills. Hibiki gets surprised upon discovering that he is connected to the most powerful of all, while God comments that it is best to continue being venerated. Claude gets emotional because the main god chose his lord, but Hibiki answers that he feels that if this god really had chosen someone, it should have been Claude and Lillian, and the wild sanctuary skill seems quite cruel to him. Lillian asks if she possesses any special characteristic, and Hibiki answers right to her face that she practically received a skill that leads her to self-destruction for possessing too much mana. She gets quite discouraged, while Hibiki feels that maybe it would have been better not to have said anything. Claude explains that it was precisely because of this power that her family rejected her and sold her to pay a debt. Hibiki comments that the fault for all of this belongs to the main god, who was the one who granted her this skill, but Claude highly doubts that it was the main god, and believes that in reality the one responsible was the goddess of magic. At that moment we see God get a little nervous and comment that Claude is right. Right beside him is the goddess of magic. Suddenly, Hibiki begins to hear a huge rumble inside his own head, while the main god tries to justify himself saying that that was just a small slip, right after he receives a beating from the goddess of magic. After that, through her skill, the goddess of magic manages to communicate with Hibiki. She explains that the little girl is suffering a lot because of that skill, but that once granted, not even the gods themselves manage to remove it with ease. Hibiki asks who he is talking to, and she reveals herself to be the goddess of magic. Upon hearing that name, Claude gets surprised. The goddess comments to Hibiki that fortunately he possesses one of the skills granted by her. It is about the grimoire. With this skill, he will be able to adjust her amount of mana and also the power of her magic. However, she makes sure to warn so that he does not understand wrong, because she will not keep helping all the time. Hibiki does not comprehend what she meant, and the goddess explains that upon using the grimoire, the administration system will be started automatically, so he does not need to worry. Next, the goddess of magic turns all her attention back to the main god and warns that she does not intend to forgive him. She asks the god of the underworld to go fetch that Iron Maiden, made to order to put the main god inside there, just to see if he dies and reincarnates once, and for all as a more serious main god. He enters into complete despair, while Claude asks Hibiki what it was that he said to the goddess, still a bit nervous and confused because of the fight between the gods. Hibiki answers that there is nothing to worry about because Lillian will be fine. However, because of the beating that the main god is receiving, the tutorial and expert eye skills become temporarily unavailable, meaning Hibiki will be without the support of God for some time, and Sist will only be able to help him with the information she already possesses. Even so, Hibiki hopes that the main god will be fine, Meanwhile, we see the goddess of magic observe him, and feeling that she has already seen him somewhere before. Returning to the three, Hibiki activates the grimoire skill. At that moment, there arises a powerful mystical cat, who is completely dominated by a few pats. She introduces herself as Veen and explains that she is the grimoire. But Hibiki starts petting her without stopping, leaving Claude jealous. But whenever Hibiki looks at Veen, she simply melts with happiness. Veen explains to Hibiki that she will be responsible for teaching Lillian to control her mana. Hibiki gets very excited and goes back to petting her, making Claude explode with rage. He asks that Furball for how long it intends to remain attached to his Hibiki also gets frustrated, because until that moment no one ever gave a single pat to him. Veen panics and, after that, Claude calms down and apologizes. Hibiki pretends that nothing happened and asks Veen what happened with the grimoire. She enters into despair, asking herself what is wrong with those people. Meanwhile, the girls enjoy a delicious bath in the hot springs, where Estelia can contemplate the wonder of those two melons. She thinks that it really is a spectacular sight. Amelia asks if she would like her to wash her back, but she answers in a very dry manner no, because she can do it by herself. Estelia makes sure to warn her lady that washing the back of that disgusting woman will not make them become friends, while at the same time continuing to feel in paradise upon observing Amelia's melons. But when Ibel hears this conversation, she tells Amelia that it will be her who will wash her back. After all, the two are friends. While meanwhile, Hibiki accompanies Claude to buy armor. After preparing all the equipment, he asks why he chose a spear instead of a sword. Claude explains that because of his size, the spear is much more suitable. Besides that, since he already possesses enormous strength, he only needs armor to protect his vital points. He also comments that if he covered his entire body, he would feel very hot. Next, it is Lillian's turn to try on her equipment. She asks Hibiki how that outfit looked on her, and he answers that she looks fantastic. But when the shopkeeper informs that that item costs 25 gold coins, everyone panics. Claude stares at the shopkeeper with a fierce look, but surprisingly soon gets excited, saying that for that price the item is a true steal, while Lillian on the other hand does not agree to spend 25 gold coins on herself. But Hibiki explains that her safety is worth much more than money, and that she does not need to worry about that. Afterward, Hibiki goes to look at other equipment, and the shopkeeper comments to Lillian that she has a very good brother. Lillian observes Hibiki, but views him much more as a master than as a brother. At that moment, Hibiki says that she does not need to worry, and that she can buy whatever she wants. But he thinks to himself that despite saying this, the truth is that if they do not do a quest as soon as possible, they will end up sleeping on the street. Lillian gets very happy and thanks him and calls him Lord Hibiki, but he asks her not to be so formal, since they did not make a pact of loyalty. Lillian understands and takes the opportunity to start calling him brother. While everyone is smiling and the atmosphere is pure happiness, they are interrupted by little Veen, who also wants to get something. In the end, they end up buying her a very expensive necklace, which makes Hibiki go bankrupt. Sometime later, the three gather in a field, where Veen warns that the time has come to teach the basics of an adventurer. Hibiki gets quite disappointed, because he wanted to go out to do a quest as soon as possible. But Veen scolds him, saying that both he and Lillian need to learn the fundamental concepts first, and that since she is his grimoire, she can be responsible for teaching everything. Even so, Hibiki remains confused with this story of a cat being a grimoire, and then Sist clarifies his doubt, explaining that it is a technical skill of A-rank rarity, which allows the user to acquire magic knowledge and skills of that world. Hibiki gets quite excited and asks if that means he will be able to fight and use magic in combat, but Veen answers that he will only be able to use magic for daily tasks, and even smiles mocking him, making it clear that she does not intend to teach any offensive magic. Veen loses no time and warns that it is time to start Lillian's training. For this, first it will be necessary to register Hibiki as the person responsible for her. He asks how this will be done, but before he receives an answer, Veen gives him a bite and informs that this is already enough. Next, she explains to Lillian that although her mana is at maximum, her offensive magical power was reduced to only 10%. Therefore, it will be best to train little by little until releasing all her true power. To accompany this training, Hibiki will also need to learn to make his mana circulate correctly. The method is quite simple. Two people need to hold hands and feel each other's flow of mana to learn to control it. Hibiki continues without understanding absolutely anything. Veen gets irritated and orders him to go practice with Claude. Claude comments that it is very easy, but Hibiki continues lost. So Veen orders him to just close his eyes and asks Claude to send only a small amount of mana, since his lord Hibiki cannot handle much magical energy. Claude understands the request and holds Hibiki's hand. The mana begins to flow. Claude starts shouting like a madman, and suddenly when Hibiki opens his eyes, he realizes that he is in a white space. A few moments later, everything goes dark. When he looks around again, the scenery has changed. An elf is standing observing a lake, and upon turning around asks Claude why he seems so surprised. It is then that we realize that Hibiki is inside Claude's body. Now he has access to his memories. He sits down and Claude comments that that girl is named Anastasia, the most beautiful elf he has ever met. While observing the moon, Claude comments that he has known Anastasia since she was little. They fought together, laughed together, and also cried together. Claude believed that they would continue like that forever. But everything changed when Anastasia initiated a massacre, satisfying herself under the light of the blood moon. But the dream is interrupted by Claude, who awakens Hibiki and asks if he is alright, and little by little he regains consciousness. Confused, he begins to ask himself why he thought he was Claude himself. Veen explains that this happened because he dived deeply into his subconscious. Claude asks forgiveness, saying that it was his fault for having sent too much mana to him. Veen goes all out with the scolding and berates him harshly. Afterwards, she approaches Hibiki and asks, full of curiosity, if by any chance he saw any interesting memory while he was in Claude's subconscious. Perhaps some embarrassing memory. Hibiki answers that he cannot remember very well. Veen comments that he is quite boring and leaves. Meanwhile, Hibiki is left with the strange feeling that in that dream Claude was calling for someone. Sometime later, Hibiki is cleaning his room to learn daily magic. This is because upon releasing mana while performing domestic chores, the fire and water spirits absorb that energy, and when they are satisfied, teach daily magic to their user. However, all effort goes down the drain when the others go to call him to eat and Claude ends up knocking over the bucket of water. He gets desperate and begins to ask forgiveness without stopping. Hibiki answers that he does not need to worry and even comments that he finds it very cute, the fact that a former hero can manage to be so clumsy. After that, Hibiki cleans everything again very fast, while Claude continues to feel guilty. Later, Hibiki finishes cleaning the entire corridor and asks Sist if he finally learned anything. Unfortunately, he still has not managed to learn anything. Tanya observes that he left everything sparkling, and as a reward warns that she will give a little gift to him later. She also recommends that he go eat soon before his meal gets cold. The problem is that the moment Hibiki begins to walk, Claude manages to ruin everything again. Sometime later, the three are training. Lillian is doing very well, but Hibiki is a complete disaster with the bow. He gets quite discouraged, but Claude asks him to keep exerting effort, saying that everyone has difficulties in the beginning. Hibiki begs to rest a bit, because his hands are already destroyed. Claude, smiling, remembers that he possesses a book of medicine, and for that reason does not need to rest. Thus, Hibiki continues begging for help while being forced to continue training. Meanwhile, Emilia continues her trip, bound for the kingdom of the elves, and is very excited because she finally made a friend. Upon arriving at a fork, Emilia recommends following the longer path instead of the shortcut. Ebel asks the reason and Emilia explains that further ahead there exists some ruins where wandering souls usually play tricks on travelers. Ebel finds this very interesting and suggests passing through that path, since perhaps they might find some treasure. In the end, foolish Emilia resolves to follow the suggestion. Estelia tries to prevent it, but Emilia explains that she is running out of money and also cannot simply go spending all the reward she received for the rabbit horn. And for that reason they continue advancing, hoping to obtain some treasures, while Ibel continues manipulating Emilia using the power of friendship. Returning to Hibiki, he is preparing lunch with Lillian's help. As soon as they finish, the three enjoy a delicious feast, but Hibiki realizes that Claude peeled the mushrooms the wrong way. Upon asking about the apples that would be the dessert, Claude panics and reveals that he is not very good in the kitchen. Lillian realizes that he ate all the apples. The two berate him for trying to hide his own disaster. Claude explains that it is all the fault of the curse, for if it were not for it, he could be much more useful. However, the two know perfectly well that the curse has absolutely nothing to do with his skill in the kitchen. After a time of scoldings and teasing, Hibiki asks who placed that curse on him. He answers that he does not know. Later, while Hibiki gets a little water in the river, Sist warns that she managed to learn the bubbling cleaning skill. He gets quite excited, but Sist recommends that he use the world map. Upon doing so, Hibiki realizes that the monster named Borliver's Roman II is approaching, but since Claude is in the party, there is no reason for concern, and he finishes off the monster. The problem is that the smell of blood might end up attracting more monsters. but now it is Lillian who becomes responsible for cleaning the monster using her magic. Besides that, they can take advantage of the monster's body to teach her to cut meat correctly. Upon realizing her insistence, Hibiki understands that she is only taking revenge for the teasing she received previously. Meanwhile, Amelia's party arrives at the ruins. Amelia leaves in search of treasures accompanied by Astelia. When left alone, Ebel uses her magic mirror and confirms that there are indeed wandering souls in that place, but does not find what she was looking for. At that moment, she hears the screams of the girls, who seem to be quite excited, but Astelia imagines she is drowning in Amelia's breasts, while Amelia believes she is taking a bath in the middle of a massive treasure. Upon entering the ruins, Ebel realizes that the two are merely having hallucinations. She thinks they are pathetic and begins using her magic to drive out the wandering soul. Returning to the boys, they finally finish cutting the boar. Now that Hibiki possesses the bubbling cleaning skill, he decides to put it to the test. The problem is that the others enter into a panic, asking if that will really work. He gets irritated, asking them to stop worrying, and uses his bubbling cleaning against Claude. The wolf begins to scream, but right after realizes he is only covered in bubbles. Upon coming out of them, Claude feels wonderful, because the skill not only removed all the dirt, but also made his fur smoother, took away his fatigue, and made him feel renewed. But sometime later, Hibiki warns everyone that they are bankrupt for having spent too much money. Now they have no money at all, and the best thing is to start working. Claude feels the time has come to start accepting F-rank quests, though he says this with a smile that leaves Hibiki quite worried. Sometime later, when they finally formalize the party at the guild, Hibiki gets quite surprised and asks Claude what all those quests are. He explains that since they will be F-rank quests, the ideal thing is to perform several at the same time to get enough money. Otherwise, they simply will not manage to survive. Hibiki understands his point, and as if that were not enough, the receptionists hand over even more quests. Among them, Hibiki finds a capture quest, in which the only available clue is a tail, which is why the ranking of the quest was raised a bit. Hibiki asks for at least more information, and the receptionist explains that it concerns a bandit who robs rich people. After that, the party is performing their quest. Hibiki demonstrates that despite all the training, he remains quite bad with the bow. After several attempts, they finally manage to kill a horned rabbit, but Claude warns that the idea was to hit it right on the first shot. Lillian, alongside Veen, meets up with them to inform that they are doing very well with the gathering, and that by luck they got fruits, which will serve to mark the path. In case they end up getting lost, they will be able to find the way back. After that, they decide to rest a bit. While resting, Hibiki remembers that he arrived in that world right during summer vacation, and that he had made plans with his friends to go out and hang around. He wonders how they must be doing now, and hopes that he manages to return soon to his world. Meanwhile, Lillian observes Hibiki while he is deep in thought. At the same time, Amelia's group is also resting. She thinks that she still has not gotten any clue that might help her find that woman's soul. Upon realizing that she is a bit down, Amelia offers an amulet as proof of her friendship, saying that in case something happens to her, the spirits will warn her. But Astelia gets irritated and jealous, while Ibel accepts the amulet, thinking that she will continue pretending to be their friend for a bit longer. On the next day, the boys are excited, because they received plenty of money for all the materials they gathered. Even the receptionist was surprised. She doubted that a group of such low rank was capable of getting so many materials, and went so far as to think that they had simply bought everything. While walking through the streets looking for a good restaurant, they encounter Baus, who realizes that Hibiki remains a dwarf. He offers to teach an efficient way to train muscles, but Claude intervenes and makes it clear to Baus that he is the sole person responsible for Lord Hibiki's training. But Baus merely answers that the only thing he manages to see in him is a weakling without muscles. Baus thinks that it will be he who will turn Hibiki into an adult. Claude comments that it is better to develop muscles in a natural way, because being too strong makes you get very slow. But Baus answers that it seems there is a lack of muscle in his brain. Claude challenges him to a duel, and the two charge against each other. Claude tries to attack him, but Baus does not even budge. The duel is dominated by him, and due to all the chaos they are causing, the citizens run for their lives, but a hooded figure seems quite suspicious. Hibiki gets quite curious and observes Baus's stats, getting surprised upon seeing that he is incredibly strong. The two get into serious mode, but upon seeing the chaos, Ibel knocks them both down. At that moment, a woman runs desperately shouting that they stole her purse, which makes Lillian look at Hibiki and ask what happened to their purse. Ibel says that when she arrived at the location he no longer had anything left, causing the group to worry, because all the money they obtained is in that purse. Ibel says that it probably concerns the thief they are looking for, the one who supposedly makes a fool out of you and steals your belonging, or who can transform her tail into a snake to steal your objects. But they have a brilliant idea. After that, they are in a restaurant, where Lillian is accompanied by a very beautiful girl, and we discover that it is Hibiki, who is upset to see that he turned out very pretty dressed as a woman. Even Sis says that he looked better as a woman. Meanwhile, we see that the goddess of magic, upon seeing Hibiki dressed as a woman, feels that she has already seen him somewhere before, but does not know where. On the other hand, Claude is irritated because they stole Lord Hibiki's money and does not intend to forgive the thief. Now it is explained that the plan is to leave the wallet in plain sight, and when the thief falls into the trap, go after her. At that moment, the waitress serves the pancakes they had ordered, and suddenly Claude gets up and runs after the waitress, who ended up being the bandit. However, the coin purse has a trap and leaves a trail. Now the party only needs to follow it. And after some time of chasing, they arrive at an underground hideout, and after a few uncomfortable moments, because Hibiki is very beautiful as a woman, Claude asks him to appraise that hooded woman, and after that the boys corner her. The bandit tries to play dumb, but Hibiki makes it clear that her lies will serve no purpose, because his job is to be an appraiser. Even if it is provisional, he reveals that her real name is Fauna, and that she possesses the skill to transform her tail. She gets surprised upon seeing that she was discovered, and introduces herself as Fauna, bandit of the beautiful tail. Claude gets quite surprised, because the power to transform the tail is a rare skill among beastmen. Even though she is surrounded, Fauna remains very confident, and reveals that despite them having tried to trap her with that bait wallet, she still stole the real one. However, there was nothing that was worth anything. Hibiki wonders in what place she managed to steal it, but understands that Fauna led them on purpose to that place. She confirms this when she touches the wall and flees, leaving them trapped in a trap. But Claude manages to pull them out of danger and orders that they pursue Fauna, so he goes after her. But Hibiki is terrible as an adventurer, and ends up falling into another of Fauna's traps. She comments that she has difficulty believing that an appraiser fell into such an obvious trap. But upon observing Hibiki better, she realizes that he is a boy, and for some strange reason gets embarrassed. She approaches and asks what he was doing dressed as a woman, and Hibiki answers that he was trying to capture her, for he heard that she attacked rich people. But Fauna still does not understand what this has to do with dressing as a woman. Fauna likes his butt, and besides that, Hibiki is adorable. So she warns that she can help him under one condition. And now, back at the bar, Hibiki is appraising objects that Fauna stole, since to her it only matters to steal authentic things. After some time appraising the objects, she touches a bracelet on him, and Hibiki wonders if that was also stolen, since it does not possess great value. She explains that it is a bracelet very dear among beastmen, and that it possesses a message from Diana. Fauna gets surprised and asks what is written, so Hibiki reveals that it speaks only about love and family. She tells that this bracelet was given by her younger sister, who had something written on it, but she was not capable of reading it, and even after showing it to many appraisers, none of them managed to tell what the message was. But it makes sense because she did not know how to write, so he supposes that perhaps Hibiki did not appraise the letters, but rather the feeling that her sister put into them. Hibiki asks if her sister knew that she was a thief, but Fauna answers that her sister already passed away, for she got trapped in a battle in her homeland. She asks where Hibiki came from, and he reveals that it is a very distant place. Fauna says that the best thing would be to go back to his home, because if he loses it, just like she did with hers, he will never be able to return there, and she speaks that his companion is also a beastman, and if he came from the same place as her, then he probably must have a painful past. So she returns the little purse of money, since his appraisals were quite accurate. She bids farewell with a kiss, and hopes to see him again dressed as a girl, because he looks adorable. Sometime later, when they return to the guild, Tanji is trying to wipe the lipstick off his cheeks, but it simply will not come off at all. At that moment, she comments to the boys that she heard a rumor from the Capital's Guild about a new party of adventurers who are leveling up at an astonishing speed, since the king tasked them with slaying the undead. They call themselves the Corpse Hunters, and they are currently traveling from the east to the west, so it is very possible that someday they will reach that country. During the night, Hibiki comments to Cloud that he feels like he discovered many new things that day. Cloud says that if he were to travel, he would learn much more. Hibiki becomes very excited and decides to go on a journey to meet many types of people. Cloud asks what kind of person he wants to meet, and he reveals that he wants to meet someone who knows more about the world. Cloud remarks that he is referring to the sages, and currently the only active ones are the sages of the 3 worlds, who have been ruling for over 500 years. He asks the one who wants to meet them, and Hibiki replies that he wants them to tell him how to return to his world, which surprises the party, and Lillian asks if he really intends to leave. Hibiki realizes that returning to his world means departing from that place, while Cloud explains to Lillian that Hibiki did not ask to come to that world and that it is only natural for him to want to return to his own. So he tells Hibiki that he does not need to worry about anything, because he will protect him until that day arrives. Meanwhile, Emilia continues her journey and warns Ibel that they will soon be searched for, as that is what the spirits of the forest said. Ibel comments that this is quite convenient, but Emilia explains that it is not quite like that, because the spirits only answer when she asks, although there was a single occasion when the spirit spoke to her first and said that something very valuable would fall in the east. She remarks that that voice was quite strange, and somewhat interested, she asks where it fell. When Emilia reveals that it was in the Lowell forest, she smiles and informs Emilia that she remembered she has things to do, and that it is time to say goodbye. And as if nothing had happened, she leaves, leaving Emilia heartbroken. Sometime later, Ibel observes her magic mirror and says that she has finally arrived at the place, even though she took quite a detour. But now the next one is Cloud, and she responds that he will be an easy target because he lost his limbs. Meanwhile, in the town, Cloud informs Hibiki that if he wants to meet the sages, they will have to travel to the city called the Land of Dinas. Benny says that this city is located past a dungeon, and that the fastest route is through the northern dungeon. But Cloud warns Hibiki that this place is very dangerous and will be extremely difficult to cross under their current conditions, so they will have to train much more. But at that moment Line thanks them for the food, says goodbye, and lowers her head. By coincidence, Baus asks Hibiki what is going on between them, and he comments that they had some minor issues. Baus misunderstands and comments to Hibiki that he will resolve everything, then takes him to the field, to a sort of training camp where he will make him gain muscles. Benny recommends that Hibiki run away from that place, and Cloud also does not like the idea of him training with Baus. But he needs training, and it is not a bad idea to train in that place. Baus is happy to see that they finally understand that Hibiki needs muscles in order to win, but Cloud replies that he does not intend to allow him to turn Master Hibiki into a muscular gorilla. So they soon begin training, where Baus forces him to crack nuts with his hands, juggle massive rocks, and fish giant boulders out of the water with Benny tied to them. Sometime later, Lillian comments that Hibiki is trying very hard, and Benny replies that considering how bad he really is putting in a lot of effort. She asks if this is so he can return soon, and Benny replies that he actually has no idea. But the important thing is that he remains the same as always. At that moment Tanya arrives. Having decided to take a walk under the excuse of watching them train, she notices that they are pushing themselves too hard. But when night falls, we see that Hibiki is still terrible with the bow. While observing the training, Lillian stands up and looks at Tanya. He is already exhausted, and Baus comments that with all that training, he has gotten stronger. Hibiki thinks the same, but upon asking Sis to show him his status, he discovers that it remains unchanged. Cloud and Baus resume arguing over what would have been better, training only technique or training only muscles. They become increasingly intense, and Hibiki ends up noticing Duel. However, the two of them reply to Hibiki that they do not intend to fall for that trick, and soon they are frozen solid by Duel. They are enjoying a delightful bath in a hot spring, where Tanya asks Hibiki, who is on the other side, if he does not want her to wash his back, and he declines the offer. Cloud laughs, commenting that it had been a very long time since he had relaxed in such a manner, which reminds Hibiki about what they said regarding Cloud's place of origin. Since he is a good gossiper, he takes the opportunity to ask Cloud about his family and his home. Cloud tells him that he used to live in the capital of the kingdom of Vistronia, but that city was destroyed and his companions are no longer in this world, although he makes it clear that this happened a long time ago and that what matters now is remaining by their side. After the bath, Lillian tries to encourage Hibiki in his training, but she becomes very embarrassed, which makes it difficult for her to speak. Tanya decides to help her, commenting to Hibiki that Lillian wants to encourage him because he is working so hard. They decide to leave the space so that the two can talk and go gather their things. As she leaves, Lillian comments that she does not want to be separated from him, but because she likes him so much, she also wants him to do whatever he desires. Despite this, she continues to want to have him by her side and apologizes for being selfish. She then approaches him to deliver a drink that will help him with his exhaustion, which Tanya taught her how to make. She does not know what she should do, but she wants to support him. Hibiki thanks her, and upon drinking the tea, says that it is delicious. She becomes emotional while we see that Tanya is also already crying. Meanwhile, Emilia is taking a delightful bath. She is finally home, even though she has not yet been able to see her father. She wonders what is going on, since they said it was an emergency. She thinks about the reason why they could have summoned her. Stelia tries to break down the door with heavy blows, begging her to grant her entry. She secures the support of the other maids to shout together, asking her to open the door. Sometime later, Stelia presents a dress to her, warning her that the king will organize a banquet. Emilia begins to think that they only called her because of this, and she starts to get irritated. The boys begin their journey, and along the way, Ibel is waiting for them. Hibiki uses world map in search of his prey, but finds nothing. Suddenly, Ibel emerges from the forest. Upon seeing that it is a girl, Cloud apologizes for having pointed his spear at her. However, Hibiki wonders why she did not appear on world map. He decides to appraise her, and Ibel notices what they are trying to do, even though Hibiki does not notice anything unusual. Ibel approaches Cloud upon realizing that he is a beastman. She says that she is surprised, although she is merely recording the information, wondering why he possesses limbs. She takes advantage of the moment and introduces herself as an adventurer from Hunky, claiming that she was fleeing from a silver ruby wolf. Hibiki introduces himself to her and asks her to tell them where the wolf was, and Ibel sends them to the depths of the forest. But upon observing Lillian, she bids farewell, warning that she needs to leave. Hibiki uses world map once more and notices that the silver ruby wolf now appears deep inside. The boys surround the monster. However, Sis recommends that Hibiki use world map, and he notices a massive quantity of wolves. A huge wolf attacks Hibiki from behind, leaving him severely wounded. Meanwhile, Ibel thinks that by touching that arm, she was able to perceive that it was real, and somehow broke a portion of the curse. She wonders how that happened, but in the end she does not care, because Cloud will become food. Cloud is desperate to protect Hibiki, and Lillian is worried because despite giving him the potion, the bleeding will not stop. Benny orders her to use state preservation magic to halt the bleeding, while Cloud understands that they need to flee from that place. The problem is that they will not be able to do so. He orders Lillian to take Hibiki to the city, where Baus will be able to save him. He will be responsible for holding off the monsters and will go after them afterward. He does not say this with much confidence, but even so, Lillian follows his orders and creates an earth golem in the form of a lion. But before departing, Hibiki asks Cloud not to do this, but he makes it clear that he will give his life to protect him. Lillian leaves, and Cloud notices that the wolves have targeted him. Upon looking into the eyes of the huge wolf, for some reason he is able to see Anastasia in them. This leaves him shaken, while Hibiki begs Lillian to go back to retrieve Cloud. They are being followed by an emerald silver wolf. Lillian enters a cave and seals the entrance, but the wolves begin to destroy it. Upon managing to clear a path, they attempt to capture them using vines, but Lillian manages to push them away with her wind magic. Hibiki, even though weak, activates the medical book and realizes that the bleeding will not stop because of the diorite poison. He attempts to use high heal, but Sis warns that his physical and mental strength are at insufficient levels, so its activation will take time. Hibiki falls into despair because Lillian will not hold out for long and Cloud is fighting all alone. He tries to stand up because he wants to save his companions. Suddenly, Sis announces that he has leveled up several times. His job level rises from 5 to 15, appraisal rises to level 2, dictionary to level 2, grimoire to level 2, the medical book to level 2, and he also acquires several skills, such as Summon Holy Beast at level 1, Staff of the God of Medicine at level 1, and many other skills. And now that he is much stronger, he uses high heal to detoxify his body, and then drinks a potion. While Sis recommends that he summon the Holy Beast, Hibiki loses no time in doing so and summons a massive white cat that, upon seeing the wolves, realizes that it has orders to slay them. He introduces himself as Venelianos Thorfiriatino, the holy beast of lightning. Upon hearing that name, Hibiki realizes that it is Benny. He continues to boast about his great power and his immense strength, saying that he is the beast of the goddess of magic, until he annihilates all the wolves with his final judgment. Hibiki asks if he happens to be Benny, and he replies that he is. He explains that thanks to the summoning, he temporarily recovered his true power. Hibiki becomes excited because now that he is in this form, they will be able to help Cloud, but Benny replies that they cannot do that and returns to his kitten form, warning that his time is up. Hibiki tries to summon him again, but there is a long cooldown time, so he assumes that they will have to do something on their own to defeat the wolf that Cloud is facing. Benny replies that that is a silver diamond wolf, and that they stand no chance against it. Hibiki does not care because he wants to protect his companion in the same way that he is protecting all of them. Lillian announces that she wants to help him too. Before setting out on their way, Sis recommends that Hibiki use the staff of the god of medicine. This leaves him a bit confused, and Benny asks what happened, but when Hibiki reveals that he obtained something called the staff of the god of medicine, he is completely shocked. Without wasting time, Hibiki uses the skill, fully restoring both himself and Lillian. A small sprout grows and presents a bow to him. Benny is even more impacted and orders him to treat it with respect, while Sis informs him that he has learned spiritual archery, the very same power used by Amelia. He tries to put it to the test, releasing a beam of energy that shoots far into the distance. He thinks that this is insane, and upon using appraisal, he realizes that what he holds in his hands is the resplendent divine bow, a bow exclusive to him. Benny thinks that this must be a joke. They are already overdoing it with all these power upgrades. But there is no time to lose. In the Hall of the Gods, the main god thanks the goddess of magic for having awakened him, and she asks if he happens to be bestowing too many blessings upon that boy. He remarks that she also gave her blessing, and using that power well depends solely on him. After testing his mighty power, Hibiki understands that now he can indeed go to help Cloud. Without losing any time, they head in his direction. The problem is that along the way, they are surrounded by a group of silver ruby wolves. However, if they finish them off, they will be helping Cloud. Hibiki, without thinking twice, attempts to charge at them. The problem is that using his bow is harder than he expected, but Sis recommends that he utilize Expert Eye. Hibiki becomes excited because if he can use this skill, it means that the main god is back. Upon activating it, he is able to mark the wolves, and when he unleashes his attacks, the divine arrows pursue the enemies, making this skill absurdly strong. Thus, they continue to advance. Lillian also joins the battle using 30% of her mana, and her power is enough to annihilate a large group of silver ruby wolves. Hibiki is surprised because Lillian is now much stronger. The youths continue advancing, and Hibiki comments that he never imagined the wolves would attack in such a coordinated manner, which makes them quite intelligent monsters. However, Benny explains that they are being controlled, likely by the silver diamond wolf. Hibiki wonders why such a dangerous monster is in that area, and Benny explains that it must involve the woman they encountered earlier, the one who is very suspicious because if she had not appeared, they would have never gone so deep into the forest. He feels as though he has seen her face somewhere else before, and Ibel is ecstatic to see Cloud suffering, hoping that it escalates even further, because that way the soul and heart of that woman will be corrupted even more. Cloud is at his limit, while wondering why Anastasia is inside that beast. The silver diamond wolf advances at an absurd speed, and even though Cloud manages to protect himself, he ultimately ends up wounded. Fortunately, Hibiki arrives. The problem is that his arrows cannot pierce the monster's barrier. Benny explains that this is the wolf's inherent skill, the diamond barrier, and with the level he currently possesses, he will not be able to break through it. The wolf observes Cloud and prepares to kill him. Hibiki falls into despair, begins to attack it repeatedly, and upon shouting Cloud's name, manages to teleport him to his side. If he had known about this sooner, they would not have needed to go all the way over there. Benny orders Lillian to use her maximum power to protect them, and she creates a massive typhoon to push the wolf away. Hibiki performs a diagnosis on Cloud's body, and is surprised to see that he has diorite poison in his system. He uses high heal to detoxify him, while wondering why this poison is present everywhere. Upon appraising the wolf, he realizes that it is also poisoned, and that it obeys someone named Anastasia, surprising Hibiki as he recalls that this is the name of Cloud's former companion. Now there is no time to lose, and he attempts to heal Cloud's wounds. Lillian's barrier is consuming a lot of mana, and due to this lack of energy, she cannot heal him, so he uses extra heal to manage his treatment, since it consumes far less mana. But Cloud still does not wake up. To make matters worse, Lillian ultimately runs out of energy completely, and Ibel merely watches, commenting that they are fools, because if they had not returned, perhaps they could have saved themselves. The wolf charges at them while Hibiki attempts to protect them, but he is unable to do anything. However, Cloud stands up and stops it with a single strike. Despite this, he is still weak, so Sis activates Expert Eye in Illumination mode. Upon correcting the false information, she notices that Cloud's status changes from Knight to Hero, increasing his level with his power unleashed. He manages to shatter the barrier. He asks Hibiki to wait in that spot. Although Hibiki grows worried because Cloud is unarmed, he replies that there is no need to worry, because his weapon is right there. He summons a divine spear, and with a great leap, uses the spear's power by activating gravity, preventing the monster from moving. The wolf protects itself with a barrier, but Cloud warns that it is useless, because before the power of his spear, it will be able to do nothing. Then he advances toward the wolf with a piercing critical strike, causing a massive explosion that leaves Hibiki open-mouthed. He is deeply impacted upon seeing the wolf's corpse. Sis recommends that he appraise it, realizing that the impure soul that possessed it has been set free. He thinks that Anastasia was being manipulated. Her spirit expresses gratitude, because thanks to him, she will no longer have to commit sins, and she apologizes to Cloud. But on that day, her nightmare comes to an end, while she will continue to sleep until the right moment arrives. Cloud approaches Hibiki and asks if he is alright, and he confirms that he is, becoming excited upon seeing that Cloud has recovered his power as a hero. However, Cloud replies that his time is up, and at the same time, Illumination mode also comes to an end. Cloud then apologizes to Hibiki, since it was through his fault that he ended up trapped in that situation. But Hibiki replies that he does not need to apologize, because he merely got caught up in it and is nothing more than a victim. Cloud explains that his former companion Anastasia possessed the power to tame monsters, and that a fragment of her soul was inside that beast. She was part of the party that betrayed and cursed him. Hibiki asks if defeating her will break the curse, but Cloud makes it clear that it is not that simple, because it was not Anastasia who cursed him. Furthermore, she is already dead, as he killed her himself. We see a memory in which Anastasia commented that she would never hand over her soul, but it was not Cloud, because he was unconscious. Now, he asks Hibiki to punish him, but Hibiki replies that he will not do that, because Cloud is merely a victim. They betrayed him, cursed him, and tore off his limbs. He did nothing wrong, so he has no reason to feel guilty. Cloud becomes deeply moved, thanks him, and states that he will renew his oath to serve him, protect him with his entire being, and take him back to his world. Beside many other promises, Hibiki declines and then faints, because Illumination mode demanded far too much energy, and he does not possess a high enough level. In the Hall of the Gods, the main god blames the goddess of magic, because she left him incapacitated for a long time, preventing him from helping Hibiki. She asks what on earth he is talking about, and he decides to play dumb. Upon noticing that the goddess of the underworld is also around, he asks what brought her to that place. She replies that she discovered he suffered greatly because of one of her torture devices, and so she came to investigate. The main god makes it clear that everything was the fault of the goddess of magic, who does not know how to control herself, but she grabs his head, causing the main god to apologize. The goddess of the underworld observes the scene, enchanted. The goddess of magic releases him and asks the little one if she has already chosen a new demon king. The little one becomes worried because she has not done so yet, but she replies that she does not need to worry, as a short while ago the hero of the Beast Kingdom defeated the Demon King. In order to properly administer the world, it is better for all 8 Demon King positions to be occupied. The goddess of the underworld replies that she will find someone suitable for the position, but the main god responds that she does not need to worry, because the case of the Beast Kingdom was an exception. Since the Demon Kings are not evil incarnate, the goddess of the underworld grows concerned, because if they ever lose control again, it could become a major problem. The goddess of the magic tells her to calm down, because everything will be fine from what she has been able to perceive. The candidates are all good kids, and she wishes her good luck with her choice. The goddess of the underworld expresses her gratitude and takes her leave, as does the goddess of magic. Before leaving, she asks the main god if he has not seen that Hibiki somewhere else before, because he seems quite familiar to her. The main god replies that perhaps he has, since he is merely offering a bit of help because the boy is far too weak. When the goddess leaves, he understands that she is beginning to grow suspicious. Hibiki needs power to survive, and he did not want him to go to that world. It would have been much better for him to live a happy life on the other side. 2 days later, Hibiki finally wakes up. Hibiki has gained many levels since the last battle, and is now at level 25, with his appraisal skill at level 5. Sis warns that illumination mode demands far too much energy, so next time, it would be best for him to follow instructions. In the realm of the elves, Emilia attends a grand banquet and is irritated, asking where her father has gone off to. Prince Vertiles approaches her and greets her in a very cordial manner, while Emilia observes him with an expression of disgust. After some time, it is announced that Vertiles and Melanchors have reached 15 years of age and have finally received their jobs. Melanchors is the sage of the elf nation, whereas Vertiles is the hero. The king announces to everyone that the duty of the hero and the sage is to defeat the demon king, and they will be accompanied by the kingdom's finest warrior and by Emilia, an experienced adventurer. She panics upon hearing this. Vertiles also declares that as soon as they defeat the Demon King, he will marry Emilia. She panics once again, and without hesitation, she leaves the place. Back with the boys, Hibiki observes all of them and reveals that he wants to find a way to return to his world, because his family, his friends, and many people he misses are over there. However, he also does not want to be separated from them, so he will find a way to return to his world without having to part ways with them. Benny replies that this is impossible. However, Cloud comments to him that if it is Master Hibiki, he will manage to find a way. Benny replies that he cannot do that, and that first they must conquer the northern dungeon. Hibiki understands that first they need to go to the land of Dinas to look for the sages, but for that, he needs their help. Cloud stands up and reveals that he will always be able to count on him, as well as on Lillian. Benny remains silent while both Cloud and Lillian look at him. He asks them not to put him in such a cheesy scene, but as they continue to stare at him, Hibiki does so too. He agrees to help him after feeling embarrassed. Returning to Emilia, she hurries to leave that place. Stelia merely observes her enchanted and drooling. Once she manages to put her clothes on, she leaves the place, telling Stelia that her damn father should take care of all that mess, and she sets off determined to reunite with Hibiki. Elsewhere, Ibel activates a mirror and apologizes for having failed. She receives an electric shock, but assures the mirror that next time she guarantees she will kill Cloud and offer that woman's soul. Lillian and Cloud ask Hibiki what those people he wants to meet in the other world are like. He replies that they are his family and his friends, who used to gather and drink black tea. Since a friend's family owns a cafe, Cloud feels certain that just as he thinks about them, they must also be worried about him. Hibiki replies that he might be right, but he is not alone because he has them by his side. At the Adventurers Guild, Baus is irritated because, after receiving the report, he understood that Hibiki was in grave danger when facing a silver diamond wolf to the death. He finds it quite impressive that they managed to defeat it with the current level they possess. He congratulates them on the great work, but takes the blame, because if he had trained him heavily so that he could gain muscles of steel, they could have defeated the monster without him ending up unconscious. He thinks he needs to train him as soon as possible to start an infernal bodybuilding routine. However, Joel is responsible for cooling his ideas down and informs the boys that the reason he called them was to discuss the reward for having defeated the Silver Diamond Wolf. Upon seeing the reward, Hibiki is surprised, and Joel explains that if that beast had reached the town, there would have been many casualties, but they defeated an enemy that would have been difficult even for Baus himself. He acknowledges this, so Hibiki accepts the reward, because with it, they will be able to prepare themselves to head to the dungeon. In a scene change, we see that the money-obsessed pervert is thrilled because he can smell it. Upon seeing Cloud and Lillian, he behaves a bit and welcomes them. Hibiki gets worried upon remembering that they were slaves in that place, and that Cloud had all his limbs intact. Cloud recommends that Hibiki not worry, since in his company they do not pry into personal matters. Hibiki expresses gratitude while that lunatic gets excited because they are going to spend a lot of money that day. He takes them to the armory without wasting much time. Hibiki chooses a wind robe that will help him a lot with dodging attacks, and he can save money on a weapon because his divine bow is already more than enough. Lillian gets a floral wand and a robe, and Aranta thinks it was the right choice, making it clear that she can take everything for the price of 100 gold coins. Hibiki and Lillian panic, as does Cloud, even though he is worried for another reason, as he finds it impressive that he is offering those items for such a low price, since no one sells them for less than 100 coins. Cloud also gets new armor, although Hibiki recommends buying something that protects the abdomen. Aranta explains that that armor is a piece imbued with fortification magic, and its defensive power is the same as wearing full armor. Hibiki confirms this using his appraisal skill. In addition to the armor, Cloud also takes a magnetic spear, which can be quite useful in tight spaces. Hibiki appraises the weapon and recognizes that it is an excellent piece of equipment, making Aranta wonder how he manages to know all of this. He asks Hibiki what level his appraisal skill is, and when he discovers it is at level 5, he is shocked, then remarks that he can already smell even more money. He reveals to Hibiki that this is something impressive, because normally people only reach level 2 in appraisal. Even in his company, Deadby, their appraiser, is level 3, so someone at level 5 is something unbelievable. Hibiki complains to the main god, saying that he should have warned him beforehand. The god responds by apologizing and comments that now he can perform what he had desired so much. Hibiki realizes that he now possesses a high enough level to utilize relief measure. His thoughts are interrupted by Aranta, who informs him that if he wants to prepare for the journey, his company can provide a carriage and the necessary supplies, and if he merely gives him a little time, they will be able to prepare everything. Hibiki accepts and leaves everything in his hands. Sometime later, they head to the field to activate relief measure and break another part of Cloud's curse. This skill summons the holy beast Carbuncle, a servant of the main god. In that location, an adorable little rabbit appears, and Hibiki jumps at top speed to pet it, as does Lillian. At first, Carbuncle complains, but in the end succumbs to the power of the pets. The problem is that this provokes the wrath and jealousy of Cloud, who begins to shout in irritation. Hibiki interprets this as Cloud attempting to break the chains on his own and begins to cheer him on, thinking that this is Carbuncle's power. But Benny tells them to be quiet and stop being so foolish, because that damn rabbit did not do anything. Then he scolds him, asking how long he intends to keep wasting time. Carbuncle merely greets him, but begins to feel Cloud's aggressive aura. He asks Benny why he is glaring at him like that, but Benny merely orders him to stay quiet and get to work. Carbuncle gets sad and activates his skill, summoning several divine hands that manage to break 2 more chains. Cloud thanks Hibiki, although he replies that it was Carbuncle who broke the curse and that he should thank him instead, so Cloud thanks him, but not in the kindest manner. The little rabbit panics and begs Benny for help, but Benny merely ignores him and sides with Cloud. Hibiki approaches Carbuncle excitedly, because now they have a new companion, but he does not intend to stay anywhere near that jealous wolf, so he leaves. Hibiki wonders why he left, while that damn Cloud plays dumb, asking why on earth that could have happened. Time passes, and now we see that Cloud is going through a very difficult time because of a heat wave. Hibiki recommends that he cut his hair, which causes Cloud to panic, but if Hibiki asked for it, then it will be done. He hands the scissors to Lillian, who looks like she is going to enjoy the situation very much, although Benny recommends that she do something else, and Lillian, using her floral wand, casts a spell, creating water bubbles that maintain their state, absorb the heat, and are also comfortable. Cloud is grateful, and while the boys are enjoying their wonderful bubbles, they are suddenly interrupted by Tanya, who enters in a rather flashy manner. She warns Hibiki that she feels so hot, she thinks she is going to die, so she begs him to do what he knows how to do. He uses bubble cleanse, causing Tanya to cool off and enjoy herself. The problem is that the coolness ends up leaving her butt exposed, and Hibiki recommends that she put on underwear, while Tanya merely plays dumb. So Hibiki decides to go out for a walk and look for something that might help fight the heat. Asking the boys to stay in that place, Benny decides to accompany him, leaving Lillian to take care of Cloud. As soon as they are on the street feeling the heat, Hibiki understands why there is no one around. He encounters Aranta, who seems to be quite cool. Hibiki is surprised and asks how he is not sweating, and Aranta reveals that it is thanks to the equipment he is wearing, the most exclusive product of his company, and Hibiki asks him to show it. Upon returning to the guild, he discusses it with Joel. She explains that the Cape of Eternal Spring is a piece of clothing that regulates temperature. The problem is that the Deadby company does not possess any of them, but she was researching and discovered that, in order to manufacture them, magical flowers called Bilatrugi are required, and Hibiki comments that they do not know where to find them, but Joel informs them that they grow in the depths of the eastern forest. The only problem is that the path is quite complicated, but Hibiki makes it clear that he needs to obtain those flowers no matter what. Seeing his determination, Joel decides to accompany him. As they advance through the forest, Joel comments that going so far for Cloud and Lillian is a very kind thing on his part. However, he replies that he does it to repay everything they have done for him, because they always use all their power to help him. and think of him before themselves. He apologizes to Joel for talking too much, but she replies that having such fantastic friends is a reflection of the great person he is. So she announces that they are almost finishing that journey, and they reach a clearing full of the flowers that Hibiki needs. Back at the inn, Hibiki arrives starving, but the boys were already prepared to hand him a sandwich. In addition to serving him black tea, Hibiki thanks them for all their effort, and then wonders why black tea. He soon realizes that they did this because last time, he commented about Amin's cafe. Looking at the boys, he feels very grateful to have them in his life, so he decides to take a look at their stats, and is surprised to see that Lillian has become a sage. Previously she appeared as a candidate for sage, but now she is a level 1 sage. She replies to Hibiki that she feels the same, but Cloud makes it clear that soon she will notice the change, and Hibiki also comments to Benny that the grimoire has also leveled up, making Benny irritated because he needs to activate it as soon as possible to update his magical knowledge. Hibiki follows the advice. Benny feels the power of knowledge, letting Hibiki know that he can make him learn magical skills. Without hesitating, Hibiki kneels down and calls him master. The time comes to depart for the northern dungeon. Tanya warns that she will miss them and hopes they return soon. Hibiki expresses his gratitude, causing Tanya to get embarrassed. Hibiki hands the capes of eternal spring to the boys, with which they will always be able to feel refreshed. As they possess temperature control, they express their gratitude, making it clear that it will be their most precious treasure. Before they depart, Baus warns Cloud that he needs to protect Hibiki and force him to build those muscles. Cloud replies that he will protect him, but will not make him exercise. The two begin to argue, but Joel takes charge of calming them down. She warns Lillian that the dungeon is much more dangerous than the eastern forest, so they need to be careful. The boys begin their new adventure toward the northern dungeon using their new capes. The problem is that Ibel has been spying on them for quite some time and intends to ensure that they die in that place to obtain that skill in the world. On the other hand, we are left open-mouthed to discover that the party of corpse hunters is none other than Hibiki's friends from the other world, Taiki, Kyoko, and Amain, who are also accompanied by their master, who by coincidence is Hibiki's cousin, and all of them are focused on finding Hibiki. Returning to the scene, the boys are camping, and we see that Cloud does not want to take off his cape, even though he is very cold because it was a gift from his dear master Hibiki. He makes it clear that he does not need to wear it if he is feeling cold, but Cloud insists. When Cloud ends up sneezing on Benny, he comments that he is now feeling much better. And the following day, Hibiki is hunting, or rather, practicing, and upon seeing that he manages to defeat a monster, he thinks he is getting stronger. However, it is made clear that he is not getting stronger at all, but is merely feeling a temporary euphoria caused by the start of an adventure. This leaves Hibiki depressed, although Cloud asks him to stop messing around, because they need to keep advancing. As they continue their journey, Hibiki feels nauseous. Cloud explains that he cannot always rely on his skills, because there will be times when he will not be able to use them, and it is best to learn how to defend himself without them. Hibiki replies that he is far too demanding, but he can no longer endure the exhaustion, so he ends up vomiting inside the carriage. They end up making an emergency stop, while Cloud cleans and takes care of the carriage. Hibiki goes over to a small lake to wash his face, complaining that he cannot stand carriages. Upon trying to scoop up some water, he notices that it is a bit viscous. The lake splits down the middle, and he panics, asking what is going on. Cloud approaches to check if everything is alright, and realizes that they are slime. He warns Hibiki that this is the perfect opportunity for him to learn how to defeat amorphous monsters. Benny thinks it is a great idea and suggests that he also avoid using weapons. However, Lillian gets worried, because if they do that and Hibiki fails to defeat them, it will be a problem. Cloud asks her not to worry, as he does not intend to leave him with nothing to defend himself, and in the end hands him a torch. Hibiki cannot believe it and warns Cloud that he is demanding, but Cloud, smiling broadly, merely asks him to have willpower. Hibiki charges at the slimes, but the problem is that he is terrible. A small slime ends up grabbing his head. He cannot breathe and panics, asking if he is going to die in that place. He remembers that Amelia had promised that they would meet again. Furthermore, he also does not want to be separated from Benny, Cloud, and Lillian, so he cannot allow himself to die in that place. He feels his body heating up, and his hand begins to catch fire. The slime runs away while Sis announces that he has obtained the fire element. The detail is that the slimes are irritated and now begin to merge together. Even so, Cloud is quite happy to see that nothing is impossible for his master Hibiki. The slime keeps growing bigger and bigger, and Hibiki begins asking for advice. Even though Lillian and Sis merely say that the creature is quite large, Hibiki comments that it is not a problem because he intends to destroy it with his flame, but the slime sends him flying straight into Cloud's arms, and Cloud throws him back against the monster. After a period of the beating that the slime gives Hibiki, it gets bored and leaves. Lillian approaches to inform him that even though it was small, he managed to use fire, and that makes him incredible. But Hibiki is not so convinced. The boys decide to camp in that spot. While Benny and Lillian dance around the meat, Hibiki uses his legendary fire to light a candle. Thus they pass the time. And when the duo ends up falling asleep, Cloud reveals to Hibiki that the dungeon they need to cross to reach Terradinas is a place that no one has managed to traverse. It is an unexplored location, and for that reason, he trains him daily so that he is prepared for any situation. Hibiki understands that he needs to get stronger, and that this is why Cloud is so demanding. However, Cloud comments that all of this was necessary to take him to Terradinas. They need to work hard together, but now it is best to rest so they can leave early. After that, he goes to sleep. Hibiki wishes him good night, but at that moment he receives a message from Sis, who informs him that he has obtained 4 new skills: Safe Zone Level 1, Emergency Evacuation, Borrowed Technique, and Copy and Transcribe. Since it is already very late, he decides to test them another day. As they continue their journey, they encounter several villagers who are camping along the path. They ask what is going on, and the residents reveal that many undead appeared in their village. They had to evacuate to that location. They complain because they have already notified the guild, but no one has arrived to help them yet. A little girl mentions that a young lady said she would eliminate all of them. Hibiki asks who she is talking about, and another fellow comments that she seemed to be a traveler, a beast woman who appeared to be very strong. Cloud comments that if this girl said she would eliminate them on her own, it means she must have experience. He proposes that they take a detour to follow a safer route. Lillian makes it clear that she wants her master Hibiki to reunite with his companions as soon as possible. Cloud replies that the fastest way would be to continue through that village, which means they will have to face the zombies, and if they want to prepare for the enemies they will encounter further ahead, then this is a good option. He asks Hibiki to muster some willpower, but as they advance and stand in front of the village, Hibiki does not seem very convinced. Cloud asks him not to worry, since the zombies are slow. As they approach the village, the youths notice several traps. Cloud asks them to be very careful, as they do not know what traps might exist along the path. Hibiki notices that there is a dog impaled on the stakes and that it is still moving. Sis warns that it is an undead, but since Hibiki is quite a coward, as he steps back he triggers a trap and almost gets hurt. Cloud pulls him out of the hole and asks him to be more careful. At that moment, a few zombies appear, but they are crushed by a massive boulder, and before them appears Fauna. She greets Hibiki. Although Cloud does not seem happy at all to see her there, he is never happy when someone gets close to Hibiki. He asks Fauna what she is up to. Since she is a thief, she replies that she likes handsome boys and that is all she will tell them. She hopes they will help her with the undead and warns that she set traps around the entire cemetery, but Hibiki fell into every single one of them. Cloud comments to Fauna that even though there are many undead, they are not organized, so there should not be any problem. She replies that those undead are not normal and that it is worrying to see them so organized. Hibiki announces that they do not need to worry because Cloud is with them and begins advancing with full confidence. This causes him to fall into another trap, allowing him to earn the title of Trap Fall Specialist. They continue to advance, and Fauna asks if he has not yet learned the trap detection skill. Although Hibiki does not know what she is referring to, she is surprised to see that he is an appraiser, and does not know what it is. She points to where he should appraise, and when he does so, he detects a trap. Fauna explains that if he continues appraising traps, he will be able to acquire the trap detection skill, and that it is very important for him to appraise everything his instinct tells him to. Cloud recommends that he turn this into a habit. Upon finding themselves inside the church, Fauna offers a prayer, and Hibiki notices that one of the gems on the wall glows. Cloud explains that if someone prays to the divine compass, the jewel will respond and glow. It possesses a jewel for each of the 11 deities, but Hibiki notices that the compass is missing one gem. Fauna and Cloud had never paid attention to that, but in the end they do not give it much importance. The church bell rings and the undead begin to appear. Cloud charges at them, but despite cutting them down, they do not die. Lillian burns them, but it also produces no effect. Fauna orders them to fall back into the church, and upon locking themselves inside, explains to the youths that the zombies appear whenever the bell rings, and she does not know why they are unable to destroy them. The bell rings again, scaring everyone and also causing many more zombies to appear. Finding themselves surrounded, Cloud orders Hibiki to go up to the belfry and take Lillian with him. Upon reaching the top, the youths realize that there is no one there. Meanwhile, Cloud and Fauna advance against the zombies and Hibiki helps them with his arrows, but they also produce no effect, and the bell keeps ringing. Lillian comments that the bell is quite strange, and they try to investigate it, but do not notice anything unusual. So we see that far from the village, Ebel is observing everything. Very pleased, the sound of the bell stuns the youths, so Hibiki appraises the bell, but finds nothing strange about it. Sis recommends that he appraise the surroundings. After some time searching, Expert Eye manages to find something hidden. Upon activating the eye, a strange mirror is revealed. While Ibel cannot believe that he found it so quickly, which means that Hibiki's skill is not merely a simple appraisal. He examines the mirror, revealing that it is an enchanted mirror, but the bell reflected inside it begins to ring, leaving the youths dazed as Cloud and Fauna find themselves surrounded. Hibiki has no intention of standing idly by, so he begins to attack the mirror. The detail is that his arrow is reflected and ends up grazing right beside Ibel. Lillian and Hibiki begin to attack the mirror while Benny scolds them, asking what foolishness they are doing. Fortunately, among all the attacks they made, they are reflected in Ibel's direction, who manages to dodge them by a hair's breadth, but her mirror does not. Upon shattering, the enchanted mirror is completely destroyed, successfully stopping the horde of undead. Shortly after, Hibiki exits the church carrying Lillian, and Fauna grows concerned, asking if she is alright. She assures them that everything is fine, although she is not entirely certain because the whole incident was extremely bizarre. The villagers return to their town filled with gratitude, though Fauna advises them that they should really be thanking that provisional appraiser. Hibiki apologizes for the church being destroyed in the process, but they make it clear that he does not need to worry, as they will handle the reconstruction themselves. Cloud wonders who could have been making that bell ring, but Fauna approaches and informs them that the guild will handle the rest, meaning their job in that place is finished. Cloud agrees with her and lets Hibiki know that it is time for them to keep moving forward. Fauna grows curious and asks Hibiki where they are heading next, but when he replies that they are going to the northern dungeon, Fauna tells them that this is where they part ways. She bids Hibiki farewell, adding that she hopes the next time she sees him, he will be dressed like a girl again. Meanwhile, Ibel is exhausted and remarks that with that boy around, killing Cloud is going to be quite troublesome. Nevertheless, she feels a bit excited, knowing that all the preparation will be worth it, even if she has to work much harder. At the same time, the Creator God reflects on how the past cannot be changed, nor can the mistakes that were made. For that very reason, he has no intention of letting Hibiki die. He wants him to survive and achieve true happiness. When he awakens from his slumber, this world will not end up destroyed. In another location, a city guard denies entry to a traveling party because they appear to be just one adult and two brats. This makes Cloud furious, even as the guard accuses him of being irresponsible. To clear up the misunderstanding, Hibiki produces his guild document, proving that he is already considered an adult. Upon inspecting the document, the guard is left in disbelief and allows them to enter. Elsewhere, Emilia is traveling in high spirits, thinking about how she will soon see Hibiki again. By her logic, he must be thrilled to reunite with her after all. She is the most beautiful girl and the very first friend he made upon arriving in Lowell. Suddenly, the bracelet she gave to Ebel begins to glow and point toward an ancient castle, prompting Emilia to rush over. Back with the main party, Benny explains that it is quite common to run into trouble when trying to enter a city. Though Hibiki finds the whole ordeal rather troublesome, Cloud warns that before setting out, they need to draft a clear plan to conquer the dungeon, as adventurers of rank C or below are required to state how long they expect the raid to take and request official authorization. This is a measure implemented by the guild to prevent reckless adventurers from entering, thereby reducing casualties. Hearing this, Lillian enthusiastically requests to participate in drafting the plan. Seeing her so eager, Cloud agrees and reveals that the difficulty of the enemies will scale as they venture deeper into the dungeon. It consists of 30 floors, with a boss encounter waiting every 10 floors. From what they know, the boss of the 10th floor is a silver emerald wolf. With that baseline, they can formulate a strategy for the first 10 levels. Lillian understands and tells them to rest while she prepares something magnificent. The party agrees, and once inside their room, they remark on how much Lillian has matured. However, it is now time to review the supplies they are bringing into the dungeon. Back in Lowell, they had already purchased weapons and armor, and thanks to Hibiki's abilities, they can brew their own potions. Thus, the only remaining necessity should be food though before Cloud can finish his thought. Hibiki cuts him off to declare that he forgot something far more critical: underwear. He points out that they will not be able to do laundry inside the dungeon, and he refuses to endure how uncomfortable and disgusting it would be to go without fresh underwear. Cloud reminds him that instead of changing clothes, they could simply use bubble cleanse as they have been doing all along. Hibiki rejects the idea, arguing that relying on magic is not the same as washing clothes by hand. It is about the heartfelt effort put into it. Cloud then offers to give him his loincloth, but Hibiki adamantly refuses, stating that having been born in the modern era, he will not wear loincloths, nor are they sold in local shops. Benny scolds him, telling him not to be so foolish and to think carefully about what resources he actually has. It dawns on Hibiki that he now possesses the copy and transcribe skill, activating it immediately. He begins duplicating and pasting a massive heap of underwear. Benny curses at him, shouting that he could have at least washed them first instead of burying them under a mountain of dirty underwear. Meanwhile, Amelia enters the abandoned castle, a place that brings back terrible memories for her. Believing Ibel is in grave danger, she feels she cannot leave her behind. In reality, Ibel is not the one in danger, the monster is. She had been attempting to tame a dire wolf, but at that exact moment, Amelia bursts in thinking Ibel needs saving. She shouts for her to stand back so she can attack the beast, leading Ibel to instantly put on an act and pretend to be a helpless victim. Amelia confronts the silver emerald wolf. Even though she manages to control the situation, Ibel realizes that the wolf ended up being quite useful, so she asks it to stop and introduces Amelia to her new companion. Amelia asks what she intends to do by controlling monsters, as that cannot be anything good. Ibel replies that she merely wants world peace and feels sorry that her friend thinks she would do something bad, then begins to laugh and asks if Amelia still believes they are friends. She remarks that older women are the foolish ones, causing Amelia to start crying and protest that she is not old, she is only 56 years old, as she shows her friendship token. Ibel realizes that it was thanks to that very item that Amelia managed to track her down, so she promptly destroys it. As she does, the monster pounces toward Amelia. Amelia manages to bind it with earth magic and immediately lunges at Ibel with wind blades, but Ibel reflects her attack back at her, inflicting heavy damage on Amelia. Before departing, Ibel comments that whenever she faces someone who isn't her intended target, she ends up running into trouble, making it clear that Amelia is nothing more than a naive elf. With that said, she leaves. Meanwhile, the party arrives at the guild, where they present their expedition plan. Upon reviewing it, the receptionist approves it, commenting that it is exceptionally well thought out, and grants them official permission to access the dungeon. Hibiki congratulates Lillian for her outstanding work, and they head to the dungeon entrance, where everyone eagerly advances as they walk into the area. Thanks to World Map, Hibiki detects no monsters nearby. Cloud recommends that he continue advancing without relying on the map, explaining that if he relies on it too much, he will fail to develop his sense of danger, which is an essential part of his training. Hibiki begrudgingly agrees, but out of nowhere, Sis informs Hibiki that the transmission level of divine authority has decreased by 15%. The voice of the creator god remarks that he had already anticipated this, but though the voice is heard from afar, Hibiki cannot quite make out what it means. In the realm of the gods, the main god wonders what will happen next. The goddess of magic appears and asks what he is referring to. He teases her, which only results in her slamming his head. He apologizes while revealing that the boy has already entered the dungeon. The goddess of magic grows concerned, as his attributes mean he will face immense danger despite his blessings. The main god explains that the boy wishes to ask the sages how to return to his original world. The goddess of magic asks why he didn't stop him, questioning why he didn't tell him that the sages themselves do not know if a way back even exists. He makes it clear that he has no intention of letting him die, but he also doesn't want to control him, as a life bound by restrictions wouldn't be any fun. The goddess of magic realizes she has found herself worrying about the boy and wonders why she feels that way, while the main god reflects that in her current memories, the sages indeed do not know the answer. Even if the connection to him is weaker inside that dungeon, everything will be fine. He then asks the goddess of magic what brought her there, and she replies that she came to invite him for tea, though he initially declines the offer. She clarifies that it is an invitation from the goddess of medicine. Upon hearing that, he instantly changes his mind, though the comment infuriates the goddess of magic, who sends him flying with a single strike. Meanwhile, the party continues venturing deeper into the dungeon until they hit a dead end, which worries Cloud, as there should be many other paths available. He asks Hibiki to appraise the wall, and Hibiki reveals that the wall itself is actually a monster. Cloud pierces through the wall with his spear, but it is not enough to destroy it. Hibiki suggests that Lillian use her weapon instead. She demonstrates tremendous destructive power, unleashing a maximum output even greater than Cloud's. With the path cleared, the party continues forward. However, the deeper they descend, the more Hibiki's divine connection drops, with Sis warning that it could decrease by a total of 25%. They are suddenly ambushed by a swarm of giant bees, and Hibiki appraises them, calling out their levels. When he attempts to attack one using Expert Eye, its hit accuracy rate is no longer 100%, but has dropped to 65%. His attack misses completely, leaving Lillian and Cloud to handle the monsters. Hibiki becomes lost in thought, wondering why he missed when every single shot used to land perfectly. Sis clarifies that the dungeon environment makes it difficult for God's divine power to reach him. For that reason, the effectiveness of both Expert Eye and Tutorial has been reduced, leaving Hibiki thoroughly stunned. Cloud assumes Hibiki is talking to him and continues explaining the various types of traps, but Hibiki remains completely absorbed in his own thoughts. And when asking himself what he ought to do, Cloud replies that he does not need to worry, because if he takes into account everything he just said, he will be able to dodge the traps quite easily. It takes a moment, but he notices that Hibiki did not pay attention to a single word, merely replying as though he were listening when he actually heard nothing at all. Hibiki apologizes. Cloud finds it very strange because he always pays attention, so he asks what is going on. Hibiki reveals that he cannot use his skills properly, or at least not at 100%. Benny is surprised, as he was unaware of this as well. He knew that dungeons fell outside the jurisdiction of the gods, but not that they would weaken his power. Hibiki feels like a burden, since his bow was the only thing that allowed him to fight, and now he will no longer be able to battle. Lillian stands up and makes it clear that he does not need to worry, because even if his arrows miss, she will bring down the enemies with her magic. Cloud feels the exact same way. As they are friends, they are a team, and they are in this together. Being able to keep enemies at bay will already be extremely useful, so he should not worry, because they are friends. And even if they are not family to Cloud in a literal sense, it feels as though they are. He, Lillian, and Benny will all stand by his side. After that touching moment, however, comes the lecture. Cloud continues speaking to Hibiki gently while holding his shoulders, and Hibiki begins to feel an immense pressure driving him deeper into the ground. Cloud reminds him that he did not have permission to stand up. He needs to remain in that position because he still has a lot left to say. Hibiki begins to feel intense pain in his legs. Benny, adding just a bit of his own weight, worsens the pain even further. Cloud makes it clear that before they continue advancing, he will have to train, because he had already warned him that he could not rely solely on his skills. Now is the precise moment to stop relying on them and learn to fight on his own. Hibiki panics. Lillian encourages him, though touching his leg also inflicts sharp pain. Elsewhere, Emilia manages to get back on her feet, remembering that with her bow, she could have killed Ibel, but chose not to. She was naive, but thanks to that she managed to survive, and now she must find her and put a stop to her. Meanwhile, the party continues advancing through the dungeon. We see that Hibiki still experiences certain issues with his skills, but Lillian faces no such handicap, using her magic to blast a rabbit monster far into the distance. Hibiki is amazed by how much more powerful her magic is becoming, though he suggests that next time she at least leaves something behind for them to collect. As the battle ends, Cloud asks Hibiki if he managed to make good use of his abilities, and he replies that he is getting better at it. It turns out Hibiki is using skills borrowed from Cloud. He borrowed the body control skill, and although borrowing allows him to use various abilities, there is a major limitation. Only technical skills can be borrowed, and while a skill is borrowed, The original owner cannot use it. Still, it is not as if he can complain, since using other people's skills feels almost like cheating. The group decides to press on, and Hibiki detects a trap up ahead, throwing a stone so everyone can see it. It is a relief he spotted it, as it was a teleportation trap that would have sent whoever triggered it to the middle of nowhere. While resting, Cloud remarks that thanks to Hibiki learning the trap detection skill, they have been advancing at a remarkably fast pace. Hibiki recalls how, before learning to detect them, he fell into each and every trap he encountered. Benny complains that he is still hungry, and Hibiki asks how he can possibly still be hungry when he just finished eating. But Benny demands that he hand over more food, so Hibiki uses his copy and transcribe skill to duplicate another sandwich. He thinks to himself that this skill is absurd and that he could use it to become a millionaire, but Sis ruins the moment by warning him that forging currency is strictly forbidden. The boy sighs, then asks the others if the 10th floor boss is indeed a silver emerald wolf. Benny confirms it is the same monster he defeated the other day, so it should not pose much of a problem. Cloud recommends that they rest so they are prepared for tomorrow, so Lillian sets an aerial alarm, and they turn in for the night. Hibiki remains deep in thought, knowing he needs to become much stronger. He wishes he could copy Cloud's skills using copy and transcribe. At that moment, without realizing it, he accidentally activates the skill, copying body control. Hibiki is thoroughly stunned and ends up waking Cloud, who asks what is happening. Still dazed, Hibiki reveals that he just learned skills using copy and transcribe. Sis explains that with copy and transcribe, he can replicate anything that is not a living being. Hibiki remarks that this is basically a cheat, but Sis clarifies that while it is close to one, it is not entirely a cheat because he must first become thoroughly familiar with an object before he can successfully duplicate it. Hibiki understands, while Cloud glares at him like a total psychopath and comments that now he will be able to learn swift stride and soft footfalls. He urges Hibiki to take his skills, but Hibiki replies that he cannot copy a skill unless he practices and uses it to a certain extent. Cloud bursts into a maniacal laugh, emanating a terrifyingly psychopathic aura, because this means Hibiki's training will now be vastly more intensive and valuable. He orders them to begin immediately so they can cross the dungeon and reach Teradinus. Hibiki protests that he might die before that even happens, but Lillian wakes up half asleep and promptly freezes both of them solid before drifting right back to sleep. A few days later, upon reaching the 10th floor, Hibiki is excitedly using the slide skill, while Cloud remarks that it is surprising how quickly he managed to learn it. The party arrives at the boss chamber doors, which suddenly swing open as a group of wounded adventurers come stumbling out. They collapse onto the ground, and seeing this, the party prepares to heal them. However, from deep within the doorway, massive vines sprout forth and attempt to reach outside. Cloud moves to block them, while Lillian uses her fire shotgun magic to incinerate the vines, successfully forcing the door shut. With the immediate threat contained, Hibiki uses his medical staff to tend to the injuries of the adventurers and their leader. Upon regaining consciousness, the leader reveals that inside that chamber are 3 silver emerald wolves, but one of them is extraordinarily powerful, so he urges them to exercise extreme caution. Inside the chamber, Ebel approaches the most powerful wolf and infuses her dark power directly into the monster's core gem before taking her leave, reminding herself that her true target is the boy aiding the beastman. Meanwhile, in the realm of the gods, the main god is having tea with the goddess of medicine and the goddess of magic. Though his gaze remains hopelessly fixated on those 2 massive mountains, he asks if she could perhaps heal him, as his joints are aching due to the goddess of magic's violent outbursts. At that exact moment, he realizes that Hibiki has entered the boss chamber, but before he can utter a word, the goddess of magic douses him with scalding hot tea. Hibiki is left in awe upon entering, as despite being deep inside a dungeon, there is a vast forest and even a glowing sun above. Cloud explains that everything in this place is artificial, and that boss chambers exist as if inside an entirely separate plane. Hibiki activates World Map to search for enemies and detects that there are indeed 3 wolves, one at level 25, another at level 23, and the most formidable one at level 43. Cloud warns that they must be extremely careful, and without wasting a moment, Hibiki pinpoints the exact locations of the secondary wolves. Lillian takes charge of exposing their positions, while Cloud sends those hounds flying straight into the sky. However, the strongest silver emerald wolf begins to move, activating its magic to make every leaf in the forest violently swirl. The group attempts to flee, but Lillian trips and falls face first onto the ground. Hibiki dashes back to assist her, realizing the razor-sharp leaves are closing in too fast. he hurls Lillian out of harm's way, resulting in him getting captured and dragged far away from the party. Cloud calls out to check if they are all right, and they confirm they are unharmed. Realizing Hibiki was singled out and carried away, they realize he is the explicit target. Furthermore, it is unheard of for a silver emerald wolf to manipulate this caliber of magic, indicating that something extremely suspicious is going on. Cloud grows deeply anxious and wonders where Hibiki was taken, but the mark on his hand begins to glow, indicating Hibiki's exact direction. Upon picking himself up, Hibiki uses World Map to assess his location. As he does so, Sis urgently warns him that the silver emerald wolf is right behind him. Hibiki panics upon seeing how massive and imposing the beast truly is. He manages to dodge its initial strike by a hair's breadth thanks to the movement skills he learned. The wolf then uses its vines to construct a massive dome, trapping Hibiki inside. As if that were not enough, the monster covers itself in a dense armor of vines and charges at Hibiki, who desperately dodges as best as he can. Cloud arrives at the exterior of the barrier and attempts to smash through, but neither his attacks nor Lillian's magic can make a scratch. Hibiki appraises the barrier and discovers that it is personal space, an S-rank skill capable of creating an isolated domain that prevents any unwanted physical objects from entering for a set duration. Realizing he is completely isolated, Hibiki clenches his teeth in pure terror, desperate for a solution. He hears Benny urging him to perform a summons. Without hesitation, Hibiki activates the spell. However, instead of Benny, a strange different cat materializes. With a simple flick of its paw, the little cat binds the monster using its own magic. Benny complains furiously, asking Kate what on earth he is doing in that place, while Kate completely ignores him and casually tells Hibiki that he can easily handle the rest on his own. Hibiki does not understand what he means, and Kate remarks that the useless Benny is a walking disaster. He asks Hibiki to raise his right hand, and as he does so, explains that he is not using true loyalty control once he learns to use it properly. Defeating that monster will be child's play, not to mention how much it will help him in the future. He then introduces himself as Kata's Field, the divine beast of light who governs contracts and serves the goddess of magic. He uses his document reading skills so Hibiki can better understand how the true loyalty contract functions. With that said, he wishes him good luck and vanishes, which dispels the wolf's barrier. Hibiki panics, but without wasting a single second, he activates the true loyalty contract, managing to summon Cloud directly to his side. Repelling the monster, Cloud delivers a dramatic line worthy of Romeo, remarking that no wall could ever keep him away from his master. However, the battle remains tightly contested. Thinking of a way to support Cloud, Hibiki activates the power of trust, transferring his own level stats to Cloud and boosting him instantly from level 45 to level 74. Though the boost is temporary, Hibiki asks if he thinks he can defeat it now. Cloud takes a massive leap, bounding off the barrier itself, and lunges at the monster, shattering the dome and slicing the beast cleanly in two. Hibiki is sent tumbling by the sheer shockwave of wind, while a cocky Cloud asserts that victory was guaranteed. Sometime later, they go searching for where the wind blew Hibiki. As he picks himself up, he finds a strange crystal nestled inside the emerald. Sensing this, the main god commands him not to touch it, but it is already too late. Hibiki hears Ibel's voice echoing through the stone, mocking them for defeating her monsters, though she reassures him that everything went according to plan anyway. Hibiki recognizes that voice as belonging to the traveler he met before. Through the stone, she announces that she has secured a passenger heading straight to his doom, triggering a hidden teleportation trap. Cloud and Lillian sprint toward him in a frantic bid to save him, while the main god shouts at Hibiki to drop the stone, but he finds himself unable to let go. Sis attempts to initiate an emergency escape spell, but unknown external interference blocks the activation. Unwilling to let Hibiki be sent to his death, the main god begins consuming the attributes of Hibiki's own skills to force the escape spell to trigger. Yet, no matter how many skill attributes he sacrifices, the teleportation trap remains unbroken. In desperation, he consumes the drop of witness from the reincarnation seals, but it still falls short. He then sacrifices the canopy of dreams from the reincarnation seals, yet it is still not enough. As a result, the gods' reincarnation seals lose their functionality entirely, and Hibiki ends up being teleported away anyway, leaving the main god collapsed in defeat as he realizes in dread that she is awakening. In a mysterious chamber elsewhere, an unknown girl remarks that it is a shame they allowed her to awaken, stating coldly that the main god is beyond saving. Back in the dungeon, the party wonders where Hibiki was sent, and Cloud watches in horror as the emblem of loyalty on his hand begins to fade away. In the realm of the gods, the goddess of medicine asks the main god what happened and why he suddenly looks so utterly exhausted. He reassures them not to worry, internally reflecting on how difficult it was to project his power deep into that dungeon. He only managed to alter the trap's attributes slightly and never expected to face such an overwhelming force, wondering who or how many individuals are truly behind this plot. The goddess of medicine suggests alerting the rest of the deities, but the main god strictly forbids it, because Hibiki no longer possesses the protection he bestowed upon him. The altered memories hiding the truth have vanished. The goddess of medicine is shocked as her full memories suddenly come flooding back. The goddess of magic also realizes why she had received special treatment and asks the main god why he hid the truth until now. He answers that it was due to a promise, but acknowledges there is no turning back. The 12th deity, the goddess of reason, has officially awakened. The newly awakened deity remarks that she hoped they wouldn't wake her, but now that they have, it is time to set the world straight, though there is something that must be done first. Meanwhile, Hibiki regains consciousness and throws the black stone away in utter desperation. Looking around, he wonders where on earth he is. He realizes he is still inside the dungeon, but knows his priority must be reuniting with his party. However, when he tries to use his skills, nothing responds. He attempts to contact Sis, but receives no answer either. Left with no other choice, he uses his basic appraisal ability, only to discover that his skills are literally crossed out. From a distance, a soft voice drifts over, remarking that she cannot enter with her physical body, and Ibel appears at the location, complaining because it took her too long to find him. She reveals to Hibiki that the last time they saw each other was when she set the silver diamond wolf against them. He realizes that she is the mastermind behind everything and asks why on earth she wants to kill him when he has never done anything against her. Ibel replies that he is getting in her way, as she needs to eliminate Cloud to maintain the balance of the world, and he is simply meddling where he does not belong. She observes that the power of the main god lingers over Hibiki, causing her to wonder who he truly is for the main god to go to the trouble of protecting him. To her, however, it matters little. She constructs a barrier to break away from the gaze of the gods and lunges toward him, warning that she will end his life because his interference caused her boss to reprimand her. He asks who she really is and attempts to appraise her. Yet his appraisal only displays normal attributes, even though there is no possibility that woman is an ordinary person. Ibel remarks that if he has finished appraising her, it is time to send him to the afterlife. Hibiki notices that he still maintains his connection with Cloud, but if he summons Cloud to this location, Lillian will be left alone in the dungeon. Ibel charges at him, and Hibiki flees for his life while his voice reaches Cloud. Ibel wonders what the main god saw in that boy to grant him his protection, but ultimately brushes it aside and unleashes a dark attack toward Hibiki. Hibiki takes the hit and ends up severely wounded. At that moment, he begins to hear a voice urging him to awaken, and suddenly Hibiki finds himself seated at a table across from the goddess of reason. Hibiki asks if she knows where Ibel is, but because he addresses her as though she were a minor, she makes it clear that she is vastly older than him. Hibiki understands and asks if she knows who he is. The goddess replies that he appeared in her dream and mentions the things Hibiki did the previous day. He feels slightly uneasy, but the goddess asks how he views that world considering it is governed by the gods, who decide and control skills, vocations, and everything else. This makes her question whether such an arrangement is truly positive for the people, as they cannot be genuinely happy in a world like that when they ought to grow through their own strength. Hibiki replies that he wouldn't know how to answer that, as he still doesn't know the world very well. The goddess understands, considering he arrived suddenly and went through countless hardships. Hibiki clarifies that a few is an understatement. It was far too much. That world is infested with monsters on all sides. He nearly died. The main god is utterly irresponsible, and for some bizarre reason, people are constantly trying to kill him. The goddess asks if everything has been difficult, but after looking at her, Hibiki answers that not everything was bad. Despite all the ordeals, he made wonderful friends and new companions. Meeting such incredible people makes up for all the negative experiences. He feels that the positive moments far outweigh the bad, so he can say with certainty that he is happy. And if he managed to survive until now, it was thanks to everyone else. Everything he experienced also helped him mature. He wants to return to his own world, but what he gained here is an invaluable treasure. The goddess of reason simply listens to him and remarks that she will let him pass this time. Even though she lacks the power to protect him, she decides to give him a small gift and tells him that once he leaves this place, he will be able to awaken. Hibiki asks if this is merely a dream, but she advises him to wake up immediately, or else he will die. Hibiki runs out in desperation. Before exiting the room, he glances at the mirror and comments that the girl looked strikingly familiar, which is because they are practically twins. The space dissolves, and the goddess wishes him good luck. Upon awakening, Hibiki narrowly dodges a sword strike from Ibel, and as he takes cover, he notices that his soft footfalls technique has leveled up. He also realizes that Sis has returned, wondering if this was the gift the goddess mentioned. Excited to have her back, he asks what he should do, but Sis makes it abundantly clear that he has zero chance of victory. His best option is to resist in a futile manner to buy time. Hibiki follows the advice and begins to flee while attacking from a distance, even activating Bubble Cleanse. Ibel hesitates briefly before pressing her attack once more. Hibiki manages to dodge each of her strikes by following Sis's precise instructions. Ibel grows increasingly concerned, noticing that he is no longer moving as he did before, almost as if he can predict every single one of her attacks. She surmises that this must be due to the blessing of the main god and decides to proceed with greater caution. At that exact moment, Hibiki raises the level of his skills once again, and Sis asks him to repeat the exact same thing she did. Hibiki, even while feeling embarrassed, shouts out that it is truly incredible to have leveled up. This makes Ibel furious upon realizing that he is treating all of this as if it were a game. Sis warns Hibiki to prepare himself, because he is about to receive a weakening attack. Upon taking that attack, both his level and the levels of all of his skills decrease significantly. Hibiki becomes deeply worried because now he finds himself in an absolutely terrible situation. Sis smiles and activates her trump card. Now, since Hibiki has everything at level 1, he is able to summon a guide through his tutorial skill, and right at that location appears Amelia, who immediately charges against Ibel, making it abundantly clear that nobody messes with her beloved Hibiki. Hibiki had previously informed the guide about everything that was happening, and Sis understands that he deliberately made Ibel reduce his levels just to be able to summon Amelia, even though it was mostly a long-shot possibility. Fortunately, everything ended up working out just right. Ibel is still feeling extremely confident and blocks Amelia's incoming attacks with extreme ease. Hibiki wants to help her out, but Sis strongly does not recommend doing so due to his current low level. However, he hears the voices of Cloud and Vanny through the connection. Cloud lets Hibiki know that they are fully aware of everything that is happening. Lillian comments that they will fight right alongside him and tells him to use Appraisal to uncover her weaknesses. Hibiki tries once again, while the girls engage in a remarkably intense battle. Ibel is far too strong for Amelia, so she prepares to send her straight to big-bosomed heaven. Hibiki interferes, leaving himself completely exposed to another direct attack. He does not die, because this guy is just like a cockroach that only multiplies. Nearly dead, he remembers that her weakness mentioned a mirror and supposes that her power consists of reflecting attacks and other things. If she reflects absolutely everything, then there is nothing they can possibly do. He asks Amelia if she remembers what happened with the horned rabbit, because if they do that, perhaps she will not be able to reflect that specific spell. Upon understanding that Ibel's power is indeed reflection, Amelia creates a solid wall of earth to trap her, and combines her power with Hibiki's to charge a powerful spiritual arrow. The boys watch everything closely and transfer all of their power over to Hibiki, greatly increasing the overall strength of that attack. With all of the transferred magical power, they push forward against Ibel, who simply cannot withstand such a massive amount of power and curses the humans. The barrier disappears completely and Ibel ends up severely injured. Amelia comments that this happened because she underestimated them, but that dummy responds that she failed with that illusory body, and that she will go back to being reprimanded once again. They will see each other on another occasion. She disappears into thin air, leaving Amelia feeling quite irritated. Hibiki thanks Amelia for saving his life, and feeling deeply touched, she turns around, but her clothes burst slightly. Amelia feels immensely embarrassed, and since Hibiki can now level up once again, the guide support feature is deactivated. Once again they are separated from each other, and Amelia is left alone with her deep embarrassment. For her part, Sis lets Hibiki know that she is extremely happy to see him safe and sound. He can also hear Cloud and Lillian crying with pure happiness because he is completely okay. At the very same time, the chief god manages to establish a connection with Hibiki once again. Hibiki informs them that he fought against a tremendously powerful enemy, and those three gods are left completely astonished that he managed to defeat it without any of their support. The goddess of magic reprimands the chief god and asks him what he intends to do now regarding the goddess of reason, because if another battle takes place, the world could actually end up entirely destroyed. He asks her to calm down since she has gone back to sleep, which means that they will remain peaceful for a very long time, and we get to see that all the people Hibiki met in this world continue living their lives normally, while his friends from the other world are still searching for him everywhere. And finally, the party of zombie killers, also known as Hibiki's friends from the other world, arrive at the Adventurers Guild where Duel is located and without any hesitation ask about Hibiki. They comment to Duel that he is someone short who trusts others so much that he always ends up getting himself into trouble. And at that precise moment Amelia appears, letting them know that she knows him, and if they do not have any problem with it, she can serve as their guide. And while they continue searching for him around here, Hibiki is already well on his way to Terradena's. This is how this anime ends, or at least its very first season. Do not forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and comment rabbit in the comments section below. A big kiss to everyone.